Chapter 14. Qin Wentian stood there, gazing at autumn snow. His eyes shone with a hint of sharpness, the sharpness of a youth. If it weren't for the fact that he had broken through to the 6th level of the body refinement realm, it would have been difficult for Qin Wentian to achieve the 8 reverberations of the drums. Ordinary cultivators at the 6th level of the body refinement realm would have the strength of 36 bulls. Qin Wentian had the incomparably tyrannical heavenly hammer astral soul, and in addition to the violent astral energy he had gathered, he was able to explode forth with twice the strength of an ordinary cultivator at the 6th level of the body refinement realm. In addition to the amplification from the dragon's subduing fists, his strength had reached the terrifying strength of 80 bulls. Qin Wentian stared at autumn snow, not saying a word. The heavenly hammer astral soul hovering above his head was more persuasive than any words. The 8 reverberations of the drums were more powerful than any words. He, Qin Wentian, used his actions to tell autumn snow, who was unworthy of whom. At this moment, autumn snow was somewhat numb. When the 8 reverberations of the drums and the release of the heavenly hammer astral soul, she didn't dare to believe that it was real. Qin Wentian was even more talented than her, even more monstrous. Today, the major powers of the royal capital, as well as the 4 great academies of the royal capital, had gathered. The Bai clan wanted to use this opportunity to announce Autumn Snow's talent to the people of the Sky Harmony City. They wanted to tell everyone that she, Autumn Snow, wasn't worthy of Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian merely wanted to curry favor with the dragon and the phoenix. If Qin Wentian was still the trash that couldn't cultivate, then everything that the Bai clan wanted to see would naturally come to fruition. Everyone would think that Qin Wentian didn't even have the qualifications to carry Autumn Snow's shoes, let alone become her husband. That would be an insult to Autumn Snow. The Qin clan, Qin Wentian, wanting to curry favor with the Bai clan, was simply the ravings of a lunatic, unrealistic. Sadly, the truth was even more fascinating than what they had imagined. Now, who would dare to say that Qin Wentian wasn't worthy of autumn snow? He had a talent that surpassed 9 stars, could communicate with the stars in the 3rd heaven, and could beat the drum 8 times. Who could compete with him? Qin Wentian, you're really scheming to hide your cultivation. Bai Qingsong stared coldly at Qin Wentian. At this moment, there was no turning back, and regret was useless. The only thing he could do was to cling on to the Yi family. Even if Qin Wentian's talent was extraordinary, so what? He believed that autumn snow wouldn't lose out to Qin Wentian by too much. Not to mention, the Yi family was a huge power. Qin Wentian raised his head and looked at Bai Qingsong, somewhat speechless. Bai Qingsong's own heart was so dark, yet he imagined him to be a scheming person. Ridiculous. 7 days ago, I helped guide Autumn Snow to condense an astral soul from the 3rd heavenly layer, allowing her to condense an astral soul from the 3rd heavenly layer. In a single night, Autumn Snow became a genius that shocked the entire Chu country. I'm very happy that I was able to help her. However, never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that from that day onwards, your attitude towards me would completely change. You even ordered your men to imprison me, but I still thought that on your birthday, which is today, I would condense an astral soul and make you happy. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that Uncle Bai, who had always been so kind to me, would actually bring people to kill me. And the purpose of killing me was to curry favor with the Yi clan. Because of the relationship between the Qin clan and the Yi clan, Uncle Bai wanted to kill me to show your attitude. Naturally, this was also to pave the way for Autumn Snow to marry Yi Wuke. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that Uncle Bai, whom I've known for 3 years, would be so despicable and sinister. I condensed an astral soul in advance, and even forgot to eat and sleep in order to escape from the Bai clan. And today, I arrived here. Autumn Snow said that I've concealed the fact that I've cultivated the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth, while you also thought that I was scheming and had secretly cultivated it. How ridiculous is this? Qin Wentian slowly spoke, revealing the truth in front of the eyes of the crowd. When they stared at Qin Wentian, they could only feel that the image of this youth had grown imperceptibly taller. The halo of light around his astral soul grew even brighter. Compared to Qin Wentian, the halo of light around Autumn Snow's body grew dimmer and dimmer. The Bai clan was too despicable. Wentian, in these 3 years, everyone in Sky Harmony City has witnessed how my Qin clan has treated the Bai clan. However, with the things they've done today, is there still a need to doubt that they are despicable? No matter how magnanimous you are, they will still use their own dark hearts to judge you. On the spectators' platform, Qin Chuan continued Qin Wentian's words. He slowly walked down the platform, arriving at the training grounds as he continued, such a despicable clan, how can I, Qin Chuan, laugh at the fact that I, Qin Chuan, actually agreed to marry my son to them. This is my, Qin Chuan's, mistake. Autumn Snow, what qualifications does she have to be worthy of my son, Qin Wentian? As the sound of his voice faded, a powerful aura gushed forth from Qin Chuan's body. In an instant, Qin Chuan's yuan energy circulated around his body, rampaging through the air. Qin Chuan waved his palms, as the violent yuan energy converged into a gigantic sword, slashing down towards the training grounds. The gigantic sword slashed down, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble violently. 3 years ago, I agreed to the Bai clan's marriage, and I almost made a huge mistake. Today, I, Qin Chuan, announced to the entire Sky Harmony City that this marriage is annulled. Autumn Snow is not allowed to take even half a step into my Qin clan. Silence filled the air. Today, who was the one who annulled the marriage? The winner was the king, and the loser was the thief. Talent was the proof of everything. The Qin clan annulled the marriage in a forthright manner, and who would dare to gossip about it? If Qin Wentian still couldn't cultivate, based on Autumn Snow's talent, who would dare to question the Bai clan annulling the marriage? Autumn Snow's countenance contorted due to her anger. Today, she was supposed to display her prowess, and let everyone know that Qin Wentian wasn't worthy of her. However, Qin Wentian's talent had caused everything to go in the opposite direction. Qin Chuan's words, to her, was an absolute humiliation. Not only that, earlier, because of Qin Wentian, Mustang had rejected Autumn Snow. Today, was supposed to be the day that she, Autumn Snow, would shine brightly. However, it had also become the day that she suffered the greatest humiliation. All because, there was one person, the person that she wanted to humiliate, who had surpassed her. Qin Wentian. Autumn Snow spat out, as she stared at Qin Wentian with an ice-cold gaze, as cold as ice. The humiliation you've given me today, I'll definitely return it to you in double. Autumn Snow's voice was so cold that it pierced into the bones. Her gaze was resolute. She had never imagined that the most glorious day of her life would turn into the most humiliating day. The humiliation I've given you? Qin Wentian laughed. Your Bai clan has treated me this way, and yet you still have the face to say such words. All the humiliation you've suffered, was all because you wanted to inflict it on me. And now, you're the one who has to bear it. If not for the actions of your Bai clan, everything that has happened today would have made your Bai clan even more dazzling. The words of Qin Wentian weren't wrong. The humiliation Autumn Snow had suffered, was originally what the Bai clan wanted to do to Qin Wentian. But because of Qin Wentian's radiance, the Bai clan reaped what they sowed. Qin Wentian continued to stare at Autumn Snow. Closing his eyes, he continued, from today onwards, you and I, as well as the Bai clan, are no longer friends. If you continue to humiliate and anger me, I'll definitely return it to you in double. Scram! Qin Wentian roared in rage, as the sound of his voice rumbled like waves, violently slamming into Autumn Snow's face, causing her to feel a burning sensation. The word, scram, was like a slap to her face. It was even more forceful than the words she had said to Qin Wentian earlier. Staring at Qin Wentian, Autumn Snow fell silent for a moment before replying, I, Autumn Snow, agree to the conditions of the Royal Academy, and am willing to join the Royal Academy of Chu. Upon hearing the words of Autumn Snow, Cypher wasn't as excited as he had imagined. Instead, he coldly glanced at Talon, causing Talon's countenance to turn extremely unsightly. They had obtained Autumn Snow, and by right, they should be indescribably excited. After all, the reason they came here was because of autumn snow. However, because they had personally witnessed an even more monstrous existence, and this person was an enemy of autumn snow, the excitement they felt was reduced to the lowest possible level. Talon, look at what you've done. Cypher spoke in a low voice, causing Talon's heart to tremble. Cypher knew that Talon had definitely offended Qin Wentian. If he were to snatch autumn snow away from the Emperor's Star Academy, he would have no hope at all. Thus, he could only settle for the next best option, and choose autumn snow. Seeing that Cypher and Talon didn't show any signs of welcome, and were instead whispering to each other, Autumn Snow couldn't help but feel even more humiliated. Autumn Snow, welcome to our academy. Next year, at the start of spring, the Royal Academy will officially accept disciples from the 8 great powers. Just bring this along and register. Cypher's palms trembled, as a golden-colored medallion flew towards Autumn Snow. Autumn Snow caught hold of the medallion, only to see the words Royal Clan engraved on it. Qin Wentian, the road ahead is still very long. Autumn Snow tightly grasped the medallion, as she silently vowed in her heart. She definitely had to wash away the humiliation she had suffered today. Qin Wentian, my Divine Wind Academy will promise you double the benefits offered to Autumn Snow. Same goes for my 7 Stars Academy. At this moment, the representatives of the Divine Wind Academy and 7 Stars Academy spoke out. The importance they placed on Qin Wentian was double that of Autumn Snow. Today, Qin Wentian's name would definitely spread throughout the entire Sky Harmony City. Qin Wentian, my Emperor Star Academy has never made any promises. The words Emperor Star Academy is the best promise we can make. Mustang calmly stated. This was his self-confidence. The words Emperor Star Academy represented everything. Upon hearing Mustang's solemn words, the hearts of the crowd couldn't help but shiver. The Emperor Star Academy was indeed extraordinary. However, Qin Wentian's gaze shifted towards the direction of the Divine Wind Academy and the 7 Stars Academy, causing Mustang's countenance to stiffen. He couldn't help but feel depressed. His words were so beautiful, but when dealing with a young and immature youth like Qin Wentian, it should have worked every single time. No way, how can I let such a genius slip away? Mustang sighed in his heart, before continuing with a solemn countenance, of course, if you have any requests, just tell me. Whatever I can provide, I will definitely not be inferior to the other academies. The crowd was dumbfounded upon hearing this. Even Qin Wentian was stunned for a moment before he laughed. This Mustang was really interesting. However, Qin Wentian still bowed in the direction of the Divine Wind Academy and the 7 Stars Academy. Qin Wentian, what conditions do you have? Just say it, I will agree to it. Mustang's fake expression completely crumbled, as he looked pitifully at Qin Wentian. Even if he had to lose some face, he couldn't allow Qin Wentian to escape. Seeing the expression on Mustang's face, the crowd couldn't help but perspire. Was this the same Mustang who had solemnly stated that the Emperor Star Academy was the best choice? Qin Wentian thanks the Divine Wind Academy and the 7 Stars Academy for their generosity. Qin Wentian's words caused Mustang's heart to leap up to his throat. It's just that this junior's fate is shallow, and I'm still willing to choose the Emperor Star Academy. Qin Wentian spoke again, as he lifted his head with a smile on his face. The people from the Divine Wind Academy and the 7 Stars Academy felt extremely disappointed, but they understood Qin Wentian's decision. In their hearts, they silently thought, not only is Qin Wentian's talent outstanding, he is also humble and upright. He is not someone Autumn Snow can be compared to. In the future, he will definitely become someone great. Emicham, I hope that you will become a powerhouse of your generation. The people from the 2 powers all gave their blessings to Qin Wentian. Many thanks. Qin Wentian expressed his thanks, as he looked at Mustang. Mustang rolled his eyes as he scolded in a low voice, "Smelly brat, when we enter the academy, I will teach you a lesson." Ha, I hope Brother Mustang will be able to guide this little brat. Qin Chuan naturally knew that Mustang didn't have any ill intentions, as he laughed uproariously. Mustang also laughed. Today was simply too enjoyable. Although there were some twists and turns, it was still rather interesting. Chapter 15. For Bai Qingsong's birthday banquet, people from the royal capital, including the 4 great academies, gathered here. However, the most dazzling figure wasn't the Bai clan, nor was it Autumn Snow, but rather, Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian had obtained the qualifications to enroll into the Emperor's Star Academy, while Autumn Snow would enter the Royal Academy. However, this wasn't a happy ending for everyone, because other than Mustang and those from the Qin clan being happy, it was against the wishes of a certain expert in the spectator stands. Royal Capital, Tulip Clan. At this moment, the old man from the Yi clan was extremely unhappy. He was unhappy, and so were those from the royal capital. After all, they came here to celebrate Bai Qingsong's birthday banquet because of the Yi clan. Originally, after Autumn Snow severed all ties with the Qin clan, it would be the day of the marriage between the Yi and Bai clans. However, the direction of events was the complete opposite of what they had planned. At this moment, the old man from the Yi clan gazed at the excited Qin Chuan and the rest, as a cold light flashed in his eyes. After which, he indifferently glanced at Bai Qingsong. Are you wavering? Bai Qingsong's countenance trembled as he stared at the old man from the Yi clan. Although he hated Qin Wentian, his heart was wavering as well. If not for the events that transpired a few days ago, perhaps what Qin Wentian had said would be true. Today, Qin Wentian's talent would cause the Bai clan to be even more dazzling than before, and the marriage between Qin Wentian and Autumn Snow would also be a story that would spread far and wide. Father. At this moment, Autumn Snow had also arrived. As she gazed at her father, a hint of loneliness could be seen in her eyes. The Yi clan will delay the announcement of the marriage between Autumn Snow and Wuk. The eyes of the old man from the Yi clan stared straight ahead as he spoke in a low voice. His words caused Bai Qingsong and Autumn Snow's countenances to stiffen. Today, Qin Chuan's words had caused Autumn Snow's face to fall to the ground. If the Yi clan were to accept the marriage at this moment, they would undoubtedly be criticized by others. They would say that the Yi clan was the one who had abandoned the Qin clan. But Bai Qingsong's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. Now that they had completely fallen out with the Qin clan, if they were to lose the support of the Yi clan, it would be extremely difficult for them to establish a foothold in Sky Harmony City. Not only that, Qin Wentian had already given Autumn Snow such a deep humiliation. Now that the Yi clan had acted in such a manner, in addition to the actions of the various academies, the impact on Autumn Snow's morale was like adding snow to snow. No buts. I will arrange everything properly. The Qin mansion will become history. The old man from the Yi clan spoke in a light voice, as a cold glint flashed in his eyes. This caused Bai Qingsong and his daughter to sigh in their hearts. The Yi clan wasn't so easy to deal with. It was impossible for them to treat them the way the Qin clan treated them. Autumn Snow, you have to work hard in your cultivation. Bai Qingsong silently said in his heart. Autumn Snow seemed to be able to understand the look in her father's eyes. She clenched her fists tightly. Today, the Yi clan had delayed the marriage announcement. In the future, she would definitely make the Yi clan regret their actions today. Not only that, the Qin clan and Qin Wentian would also be involved. Shifting their gazes, Autumn Snow and the rest once again looked at the training grounds. The old man from the Yi clan, upon seeing the complacent expressions on the faces of those from the Qin clan, couldn't help but to say in a cold voice, just revealing a little bit of talent, and yet they are already so complacent. No wonder the Qin clan, after Qin Wu's death, has declined generation after generation. To think that even today, they still don't know how to repent. How lamentable. Qin Chuan's countenance abruptly stiffened, as his sharp eyes stared at the spectator stands. The decline of the Qin clan was something that all the major powers in the Chu capital knew very well. Since the emperor wanted the Qin clan to fall, how could they not do so? and this was also the time when the Yi clan rose to prominence. The emperor had intentionally supported the Yi clan, suppressing the Qin clan, stepping on the Qin clan to climb up the ranks step by step. An innate talent with an affinity for astral energy exceeding 9 stars, and his first astral soul was condensed from an astral soul from the 3rd heavenly layer. Even Yi Wuke from the Yi clan is only a so-so. Now that you're saying such words, aren't you a joke? Qin Chuan stared at the old man in the spectator stands, as he coldly replied. Ridiculous. The eyes of the old man from the Yi clan were as calm as ever, without the slightest fluctuation. He casually continued, when Yi Wuke was 15 years old, he had already opened his second astral gate and condensed his second astral soul. Not only that, his second astral soul was condensed from an astral soul from the 3rd heavenly layer. As for that Qin Wentian, when he was 15 years old, he was still painstakingly meditating to increase his affinity for astral energy in order to condense an astral soul from the 3rd heavenly layer. How can he be compared to Yi Wuke? The calm voice of the old man from the Yi clan contained an unquestionable tone, causing the hearts of the spectators to shiver. Meditating could increase one's affinity for astral energy, which was why there were many cultivators who chose to delay condensing their astral souls in order to condense an astral soul from a higher-level astral soul. Autumn Snow and Qin Wentian were probably the same. Indeed, they were still inferior to Yi Wuke. Yi Wuke from the Yi clan is too dazzling, so dazzling that no one can hope to surpass him. Many in the crowd silently mused. Yi Wuke was a demon-level genius who had the potential to step into Yuanfu before the age of 20. Qin Chuan had no way to refute the words of the old man. After all, Qin Wentian's cultivation had only just begun. Nobody knew that Qin Wentian's first astral soul originated from the 5th heavenly layer. Not only that, how many days had it been since he condensed his astral soul to his current level of cultivation? However, at this moment, the old man from the Yi clan continued, staring at Qin Wentian as he continued, Qin Wentian possesses extraordinary talent and has already condensed an astral soul. He's worthy of being nurtured. I believe that the most suitable place for him isn't the Emperor's Star Academy, but rather, the godly General Martial Palace of Chu. No way. Qin Chuan decisively rejected the old man's words. Whichever academy Qin Wentian wishes to join, it's up to him. It's not up to the Yi clan to tell him what to do. The pupils of some of the more knowledgeable people narrowed. The godly General Martial Palace was a martial palace specially created to nurture the elites of the Chu country. It was a powerful weapon of the Chu country, and many military officers, regardless of their rank, graduated from the godly General Martial Palace. It was a purely military martial palace, and was not open to the public. Only those with outstanding talent could enter. Back then, Qin Wu swept unhindered through the Chu country. Other than his monstrous martial prowess, another important reason was that Qin Wu was the controller of the godly General Martial Palace. The godly General Martial Palace was also the first target of the current His Majesty. Now that the godly General Martial Palace was firmly under the control of the His Majesty, how could Qin Wentian enter? The ancestor of the Qin clan, Qin Wu, was loyal to the Emperor and the godly General Martial Palace. But now, the descendant of the Qin clan has actually forgotten his ancestor, and is unwilling to enter the godly General Martial Palace. This is simply a humiliation to the ancestors. The old man from the Yi clan coldly snorted. At this moment, Mustang was also extremely unhappy. He didn't expect the Yi clan to have such a sinister move. Qin Wentian has already agreed to enter my Emperor's Star Academy. Yi Mo, now you want him to join the godly General Martial Palace. What is the meaning of this? Mustang's voice contained traces of coldness. Qin Wentian has yet to officially enter the Emperor's Star Academy. He is still a free man, and cannot be considered a member of the Emperor's Star Academy. Yi Mo stared straight at Mustang, as he calmly continued, hence, his future path has yet to be determined. Not only that, it wasn't my intention to allow him to join the godly General Martial Palace. As he spoke, the corners of Yi Mo's mouth curled up in a cold smile. He glanced at Ice Hawk, who stood beside him, only to see Ice Hawk standing up and walking a few steps forward, retrieving an imperial decree from his robes. Smiling coldly at Qin Chuan, he stated, "This is the imperial decree of His Majesty. Do you want me to read it, or do you want me to read it personally?" Qin Chuan's countenance froze. The current His Majesty had finally stepped out, and was going to deal a fatal blow to his Qin clan. So it turned out that the reason why Mo, Ice Hawk and the rest personally came to the Sky Harmony City wasn't for autumn snow, but for the sake of his Qin clan. Qin Wentian's talent had only caused the Yi clan to be in an awkward position, but it wouldn't obstruct the purpose of his visit. "Read it then." Qin Chuan's heart turned cold. Ice Hawk coldly laughed, as he continued, "The imperial decree of His Majesty." In the past, Qin Wu's achievements were outstanding, and his name shook the four corners of the world. In consideration of Qin Wu's achievements, the previous emperor conferred the title of Martial King to Qin Wu, but it wasn't enough to commend him for his contributions to the country. Now that the Qin clan has gradually declined, I feel deeply ashamed to face Martial King. Today, I hereby decree that all the outstanding talents of the Qin clan shall be directly sent to the godly General Martial Palace for cultivation. As for the outstanding talents of the Qin clan, Ice Hawk shall also be allowed to bring them into the Silver Feather Knight Regiment for training. The Yi clan and Ice Hawk shall jointly select the outstanding talents of the Qin clan. When the members of the Qin clan heard the contents of the imperial decree, their bodies trembled in anger. Commending Qin Wu's past achievements. This was obviously taking drastic measures to remove the firewood from the bottom of the cauldron. Taking away the talented youths of the Qin clan, and even ordering Ice Hawk to bring the Qin clan's private army into the Silver Feather Knight Regiment as he pleased. If this was the case, the Qin clan would no longer have any hope left. If the spirits of the ancestors were still alive, they would definitely thank His Majesty for his benevolence. Qin Chuan was infuriated to the extreme, yet he managed to calm himself down, as he spoke sarcastically. The population of the Chu country was in the trillions, and it was unknown how many clans there were. The country was the strongest power, but even so, it wouldn't interfere in the matters of the clans within the borders of the Chu country. However, the Qin clan was different. The Qin clan was a clan of generals, and they were part of the country. Hence, the Chu royal palace could directly issue an imperial decree to the Qin clan. Obeying the imperial decree was their responsibility. Qin Wentian, who was standing beside Qin Chuan, also felt a wave of sorrow. This time around, the Yi clan and Ice Hawk had obviously come prepared. Coincidentally, Qin Wentian had displayed his talent. How could the Yi clan let this opportunity slip by? Back then, His Majesty used the title of a martial king to banish the members of the Qin clan to the Sky Harmony City. And now, he's prepared to use a similar gift to deprive the Qin clan of all hope. Qin Wentian silently speculated in his heart. If the Qin clan disobeyed, it would be equivalent to disobeying His Majesty's imperial decree, and the people brought by Ice Hawk would be of use. How should the Qin clan choose? Continue to obey His Majesty's imperial decree, or rebel? Chapter 16. The reactions of the members of the Qin clan fell into the eyes of Yi Mo and Ice Hawk. However, Yi Mo's countenance was incomparably indifferent as he continued, "His Majesty's benevolence has extended to 3 individuals. Qin Yao, Qin Shang and Qin Ji, the 3 of them can leave their original academies and enter the godly General Martial Palace to cultivate." What? Qin Shang's countenance paled, while Qin Yao's beautiful eyes flickered unpredictably. Was he planning to capture them all in one fell swoop? Currently, only Qin Yao, Qin Shang and Qin Ji were cultivating in the royal capital. Of this, Xiefeng can testify. Yi Mo indifferently stated, as the gazes of the crowd landed on Xiefeng. Even Talon was staring at him, as he didn't know of this news beforehand. Indeed, His Majesty has already sent someone to inform the academies. Xiefeng calmly stated, causing the hearts of the members of the Qin clan to sink to the bottom of the valley. What a ruthless His Majesty, he was planning to deal a fatal blow to the Qin clan. What a coincidence, the members of the Qin clan are all here today. I believe Qin Yao and the rest, as well as Qin Wentian, will all be brought to the godly General Martial Palace by me. Since His Majesty has personally issued the decree, the godly General Martial Palace will definitely nurture them well. Icehawk's eyes were as sharp as a blade. This time around, he came to the Sky Harmony City, and indeed, had nothing to do with autumn snow. It was purely for the sake of the Qin clan. Although His Majesty is benevolent to my Qin clan, we have no interest in the affairs of the country, nor do we have the heart to join the army. We can only thank His Majesty for his kind intentions. Qin Chuan stared at Yi Mo, his voice heavy. You dare to defy His Majesty's decree? Icehawk pointed his long spear at Qin Chuan, emitting a sharp aura as he lunged towards Qin Chuan. Icehawk! Yi Mo shouted, as Icehawk lowered his long spear. Yi Mo stood with his hands behind his back as he calmly stated, Qin Chuan, since His Majesty has entrusted this mission to me and Icehawk, I will do my best to accomplish it. Since you defy His Majesty's decree, he might be magnanimous and not do anything to you, but I will definitely be in a difficult position. Hence, it's best if you agree. What if I say no? Qin Chuan replied. Hearing this, Yi Mo suddenly quieted down and just stared at him. After a moment, a strange smile appeared in his eyes and he said, You can try. A son of the Qin clan. Qin Chuan shouted. Abruptly, a killing intent permeated the atmosphere. The members of the Qin clan all left their seats and mounted their horses. Their gazes were as sharp as blades as they stared at Yi Mo, who was on the viewing platform. Present. The cold chi seemed to have dropped the temperature of the space. Many people couldn't help but shiver. They glanced at those faces and had the same thought. If it wasn't for Yi Mo, even if Qin Wentian didn't show his talent, if the Bai family dared to humiliate Qin Wentian, they probably wouldn't have it easy. Let's go back. Qin Chuan snorted coldly. He didn't say anything else and pulled Qin Wentian away from the arena. They mounted their horses and in an instant, the sound of galloping hooves could be heard as the horses galloped on the main road. The Qin clan had endured humiliation for too long. Now, His Majesty was pressuring them again and again, wanting them to send their sons to die. Even if the Qin clan rebelled, they wouldn't comply. Yi Mo watched as the members of the Qin clan left. He coldly laughed, Icehawk, the people of the Qin clan ignored the Emperor's edict. Bring the Silver Feather Knights and surround the Qin clan. Right. Icehawk nodded. In addition, take the edict and inform the governor of Sky Harmony City to mobilize the Chu Dragon Guards to lock down Sky Harmony City. At the same time, they will assist you in keeping an eye on the Qin clan. Don't let anyone from the Qin clan step out of Sky Harmony City. Yi Mo continued, causing the hearts of the spectators to shiver. There were over 100 cities in Chu, and all of them were garrisoned by the Chu Dragon Guards. This was the foundation of the Chu royal clan. Usually, they wouldn't interfere with the affairs of the cities, and could only be mobilized by the royal edict. Evidently, the Emperor of Chu had sent Yi Mo to Sky Harmony City in order to destroy the Qin clan from this setback. Bai Qingsong, who was on the viewing platform, felt a chill in his heart when he saw Yi Mo's actions. The Yi clan was indeed the most terrifying clan in Chu. Their methods were much more ruthless compared to the Qin clan. However, Bai Qingsong heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. At the very least, his Bai clan didn't need to worry about the Qin clan seeking revenge. As for the marriage between Yi Wuke and Autumn Snow, although he was concerned about it, he didn't care too much about it. As long as the Qin clan was destroyed, even without Yi Wuke, with the talent of his daughter, Autumn Snow, she wouldn't need to rely on a man to become a phoenix amongst men. The members of the 4 great academies hadn't left yet, each with their own thoughts. Cypher and Talon's countenances flashed with a hint of sharpness. Not long ago, when the Crown Prince was training his troops, he discovered that the hearts of the soldiers weren't united. In the end, he discovered that Qin Wu's influence in the army couldn't be ignored. This matter finally became the fuse, and the emperor decided to make a move against the Qin clan. Since Qin Wendian was from the Qin clan, Yemo wouldn't let him off easily. As for the Royal Academy, they had autumn snow, which was more than enough. Mustang's countenance was cold. The relationship between the Emperor's Star Academy and the royal clan of Chu was extremely complicated. Now that Yemo made a move against the Qin clan because Qin Wendian hadn't officially joined the Emperor's Star Academy, Mustang had nothing to say. Of course, the main reason was that he was still in Sky Harmony City. His strength wasn't here, and he had no way of contending against Yemo and the others. Today, the events that transpired outside the Sky Harmony cities by clan were extremely shocking. Autumn snow, with the prestige of the #1 genius of Sky Harmony City, caused the 4 great academies to come to the Chu clan for her sake. At the same time, she was prepared to use her overwhelming talent to humiliate the Qin clan and annul the engagement. However, who would have thought that the youth who couldn't cultivate, the fiancé of Autumn Snow, Qin Wendian, would actually stand on the training grounds with an even stronger stance. The Emperor's Star Academy had rejected Autumn Snow because of him. From now onwards, the title of the #1 genius of Sky Harmony City belonged to Qin Wendian. But now, Yemo wanted to make a move against the Qin clan. No one knew what would happen to Qin Wendian, the #1 genius of Sky Harmony City. Naturally, this shocking news only fermented within Sky Harmony City. With the interference of the Chu Dragon Guards, this news was sealed, and no one was able to spread it out. Only those major powers that came from the royal capital quietly returned, preparing to bring the news back to the Chu clan. As for those from the Qin clan, they had already safely returned to the Qin residence. However, at this moment, the atmosphere in the Qin residence was extremely stifling. The important figures of the Qin clan were all gathered together, with their brows furrowed. Currently, the entire Qin residence was surrounded by the Silver Feather Cavalry Regiment, and the Qin clan's army was in a standoff with them. Who would have thought that the emperor would be so vicious and merciless? The Wu King bled for the sake of Chu, yet in the end, we ended up like this. As long as our Qin residence still exists, I'm afraid that the heart of the current emperor will never be at ease. How pitiful of our ancestors to risk their lives for the sake of the Chu clan. Within the Qin residence, the atmosphere was filled with a sense of anger. Qin Chuan remained silent, he knew more than the others. He had heard that the emperor's health was deteriorating, and in order to ensure the safety of the Chu country, he couldn't tolerate the existence of any powers that could influence his decisions. Furthermore, the terrifying influence that his father, Qin Wu, had in the army many years ago, was considered a hidden danger. Since things have already come to this, there's no point in being angry. Luckily, a genius has appeared in our Qin clan. Qin Chuan glanced at Qin Wendian, who was standing beside him, as he patted him on the shoulder. Wendian, today, you've truly vented your anger. Smelly brat, no wonder you were so confident a few days ago. At that time, you had already condensed your astral soul, yet you didn't tell me about it. Not only that, you even secretly cultivated for 2 days without eating or drinking. Qin Yao rolled her eyes at Qin Wendian, as a strange light flickered in her beautiful eyes. A smile could be seen in Qin Wendian's eyes, yet his heart was slightly heavy. After so many years, he had already regarded himself as a member of the Qin clan. The gazes of the members of the Qin clan were all focused on Qin Wendian. Today, Qin Wendian's talent was undoubtedly the greatest surprise of the Qin clan, but it also caused many people to feel slightly embarrassed. The second son of the Qin clan, Qin He, looked towards Qin Wendian and said, "Wendian, I once wanted to expel you from the Qin clan. Luckily, I didn't manage to do so, or else I would be a sinner of the Qin clan. I'm sorry." As he spoke, Qin He actually bowed slightly to Qin Wendian, to show his sincerity. "And me, Qin Yi. Wendian, if you are unhappy with me, you can let Big Brother punish me however he wants. If I say the word no, then I'm not fit to be a member of the Qin clan." Qin Ye's voice was rough, yet it contained traces of manliness. "Second uncle, third uncle, both of you are thinking for the sake of the Qin clan. Why would I blame you? After all, I was the one who wasted so many resources of the Qin clan in the past. Qin Wendian smiled, not minding at all. You still dare to say that? The Yuan meteor stones that father gave you in the past, didn't you secretly give them to me? Qin Yao couldn't help but speak up for Qin Wendian, causing Qin Chuan and the rest to be dumbfounded. In that case, Qin Wendian didn't use the Yuan meteor stones to cultivate. Father, second uncle, third uncle, you guys don't know this, but Wendian has a unique understanding of condensing astral souls. He was the one who helped me condense my astral soul, and he also gave the Yuan meteor stones that father gave me for my cultivation. Qin Yao spoke the truth, causing the gazes of many to land on Qin Wendian. However, Qin Wendian only smiled awkwardly. I have no use for them, so I gave them to elder sister. Qin Wendian scratched his head. Qin He and Qin Yi stared blankly at Qin Wendian, as they sighed in their hearts. This young man in front of them actually had such magnanimity. It was laughable that they had always wanted to expel him from the Qin clan. The temperament of a young man caused them to feel ashamed. Both of them swore in their hearts that from now on, they would do everything in their power to protect this young man. Chapter 17. Qin Chuan couldn't help but feel happy when he saw the unity of the Qin clan. The sons and daughters of the Qin clan all had bones of steel. Second bro, third bro, follow me to see old Master Qin. Wendian, Yaoer, you two return first. At this moment, Qin Chuan spoke to the few of them, as he brought Qin He and the rest to a courtyard within the Qin clan. Ancestor Qin Wu is indebted to the late emperor. Ancestor Qin Wu and Old Master Qin have always remembered this debt of gratitude, and thus decided to serve the Chu country. But now that the royal clan actually wants our Qin clan to disappear, I'm afraid Old Master Qin will not be able to endure this any longer. Qin Yao whispered. Qin Wendian understood the severity of the situation, as he nodded his head. Grandpa Qin knows what to do. Also, you actually hid the fact that you condensed your astral soul from me. 8 reverberations from the drum of strength, with the strength of 80 bulls. What cultivation level are you at now? As they walked, Qin Yao's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wendian, as she curiously asked. If one didn't include the amplification of one's astral soul, even if Wu Xiu was at the 9th level of the body refinement realm, he would only have the strength of 81 bulls. Why don't you take a guess? Qin Wendian shrugged his shoulders. For a cultivator at the 6th level of the body refinement realm to have such immense strength, it wasn't normal. How would I guess? Qin Yao's lips twitched, as she smiled at Qin Wendian. Do you feel disappointed that your engagement with the great beauty Autumn Snow has been dissolved? What's there to be disappointed about? Don't I already have a great beauty by my side? Qin Wendian stared at Qin Yao, his gaze roaming over her from top to bottom. Qin Yao was 1.7 meters tall, with graceful curves and a towering bosom. She was definitely a rare beauty, especially after her tempering in the royal Chu capital. She was even more mature than before. You even dare to tease your sister. Qin Yao couldn't help but blush when she saw Qin Wendian's unbridled gaze. She stretched out her hand and ruthlessly pinched Qin Wendian's waist, causing Qin Wendian to draw in a breath of cold air. Sister, I was wrong. Qin Wendian bitterly smiled. Only then did Qin Yao release him. She then placed her hands into her robes, and took out 2 yuan meteor stones, causing Qin Wendian to freeze. These are the yuan meteor stones you gave me back then. You knew that one day, you would condense an astral soul and would need to use them, so I purposely left 2 for you. Qin Yao grabbed Qin Wendian's hands and passed the yuan meteor stones to Qin Wendian. Looking at the beautiful countenance in front of him, Qin Wendian felt warmth in his heart. The importance of yuan meteor stones to stellar martial cultivators was self-evident. They were able to rapidly raise their cultivation bases, yet Qin Yao didn't use them at all. She'd rather cultivate slowly, leaving behind 2 incomparably valuable yuan meteor stones for him. Sister. Qin Wendian looked at Qin Yao, causing Qin Yao to look back at him. She smiled and said, What? Do you intend to repay me with your body? Ah. Qin Wentian's eyes flickered, as he stared fixedly at Qin Yao, causing her beautiful face to instantly turn red. She hurriedly turned around and stated, "Cultivate well, you have to live up to everyone's expectations." With that, Qin Yao jogged into the courtyard. Yi clan, Bai clan, royal clan. Qin Wentian mumbled in a low voice as he returned to the training grounds of the west courtyard. He sat down cross-legged. The events of the past few days had happened too quickly, and he didn't even have the time to carefully observe the state of his cultivation. After calming his heart, Qin Wentian entered a meditative state. His consciousness could sense the existence of the astral gate, where the heavenly hammer astral soul was located, containing an immense amount of energy. The heavenly hammer astral soul was condensed from an astral soul from the fifth heavenly layer. The current me is still unable to unleash its full potential. Even if I step into the heavenly dipper realm one day, the astral soul would still be able to support me in combat. Qin Wentian mused. The higher the level of an astral soul, the more terrifying the amount of energy it contained. Hence, although Qin Wentian was only at the 6th level of the body refinement realm, he was still able to unleash a terrifying amount of energy. This was the amplification granted to him by the heavenly hammer astral soul. Not only that, the heavenly hammer astral soul should be able to bestow me with a talent in forging, but I've yet to excavate it. Qin Wentian mused as his consciousness drifted towards the tiny astral being. Traces of shock could be seen in his heart. The memories contained within the tiny astral being had even bestowed upon him the tempered thousand hammer refinement technique. It was extremely mysterious. Not only that, this tiny astral being was formed from the stone left behind by his father, who he had never met before. There was a high possibility that it was an extremely high-grade Yuan meteor stone. That stone should have been triggered by the absorption of astral energy. As he thought of this, Qin Wentian's consciousness drifted towards the tiny astral being. However, at this moment, the tiny astral being was dim and lusterless, as though it had been sealed. Qin Wentian's consciousness had no way to communicate with it. With a single thought, Qin Wentian's astral meridians transformed into a whirlpool as the astral energy within his body frenziedly flowed towards the tiny astral being, akin to a river flowing into the sea. In an instant, numerous strands of astral energy were absorbed into the body of the tiny astral being, completely disappearing without a trace. As expected. Qin Wentian's heart trembled as he unceasingly channeled astral energy into the tiny astral being. The tiny astral being was like a bottomless pit, unceasingly devouring the astral energy, yet there was no reaction at all. Finally, Qin Wentian stopped. Opening his eyes, a look of shock could be seen in them. If he wanted to activate the tiny astral being, he would need an extremely large amount of astral energy. The amount of astral energy stored within his body was insufficient. A look of contemplation appeared in Qin Wentian's eyes. Since this tiny astral being was able to bestow upon him the tempered thousand hammer refinement technique, and was also the only item left behind by his father, there was a high possibility that it contained a great secret within. He had an intense desire to probe it further. Steeling his heart, Qin Wentian placed a piece of Yuan meteor stone in his palm. At the same time, he closed his eyes once again as the astral energy within his body flowed out from his limbs and bones, frenziedly flowing towards the tiny astral being. At the same time, Qin Wentian's palm unceasingly absorbed the astral energy within the Yuan meteor stone, absorbing it into his body. This sitting lasted for a very long time. The tiny astral being was like a bottomless pit, frenziedly absorbing the astral energy, as though it would never be able to satisfy it. Qin Wentian felt extremely depressed in his heart. If he absorbed the astral energy within a piece of Yuan meteor stone and used it to temper his body, he would definitely be able to advance to the next cultivation realm at a faster rate. But now, the astral energy he absorbed into his body didn't have the chance to temper his body. Instead, it was all given to the tiny astral being. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian was already riding a tiger. It was hard for him to dismount. He had to find out the truth no matter what. Time flowed by bit by bit. Because the astral energy within his body was unceasingly being depleted, the Yuan meteor stone in Qin Wentian's palm was also replenished at an extremely fast rate. Only then did the tiny astral being finally emitted a faint glow. There's a reaction. Qin Wentian's heart trembled as his consciousness drifted towards the tiny astral being. He could faintly sense that the tiny astral being was a body of consciousness. His own consciousness was actually immersed within the boundless consciousness of the tiny astral being. Qin Wentian felt that his own consciousness was extremely tiny and insignificant, as though he was in the middle of the astral rivers in the 9 heavenly layers. Qin Wentian's consciousness wanted to communicate with the boundless consciousness, yet to no avail. It was as though the consciousness of the tiny astral being was sealed away. I still need astral energy. Qin Wentian continued to frenziedly channel astral energy into the tiny astral being, until the astral energy within the first Yuan meteor stone was completely depleted. He then picked up the second Yuan meteor stone and continued. Since he had already reached this step, he had to find out the truth no matter what. Finally, Qin Wentian could feel that the sealed consciousness of the tiny astral being was gradually glowing. After an unknown period of time, abruptly, the glow of astral light intensified, and Qin Wentian felt an immense will enveloping his consciousness. Abruptly, he only felt a beam of light penetrating into his consciousness, causing his consciousness to be shaken to the extreme, as though it was on the verge of collapse. His heart trembled violently as a piercing pain filled his head, and he felt as though his body was about to collapse. Who? Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. That instant earlier was extremely similar to the time when he underwent the tempered hammer tempered thousand refinement technique. That instant felt like an eternity, and at this moment, his entire body was drenched in sweat. Memories, there's another surge of memories. Qin Wentian's heart trembled violently. At this moment, the tiny astral being dimmed once again, expelling his consciousness from his consciousness. However, there were more memories in his mind. The tiny astral being was like a treasure trove formed from countless memory fragments. Every time it was activated, it would bestow him with extraordinary memories, and they were all things he needed. Previously, it was the tempered hammer tempered thousand refinement technique, and this time around, it was some fragmented memories that he needed, regarding the forging of weapons. Damn old fogey, what stone did you leave behind for me? Qin Wentian stared at the skies. It was as though he could see a silhouette, a gentle face. It was his damn old fogey, looking down at him from the skies. After a moment of silence, Qin Wentian opened his palm and glanced at the second depleted Yuan meteor stone. He mumbled in a low voice, if I want to reactivate the tiny astral being, I need an immense amount of astral energy. Not only that, this amount of astral energy can only sustain a small portion of the memory fragments. If I want to reactivate it again, I'll need to use even more expensive Yuan meteor stones. After muttering to himself, Qin Wentian continued absorbing the astral energy from the Yuan meteor stones. However, this time around, it wasn't to reactivate the tiny astral being, but rather, to replenish the astral energy in his body. At the same time, Qin Wentian also started to sort out the memories he had absorbed. Weapons could be categorized into ordinary weapons and divine weapons. Ordinary weapons wouldn't amplify one's strength, while divine weapons could amplify one's strength. Hence, the weapons Wu Xiao was referring to were all divine weapons. Divine weapons could be categorized into 10 levels, and each level was further divided into 3 grades. Wu Xiao, who was able to forge divine weapons, was highly respected, and was referred to as a Grandmaster Weaponsmith or Grandmaster Weaponsmith. And for those who possessed a forging-type astral soul, it was easier for them to become a Grandmaster Weaponsmith. Qin Wentian's Heavenly Hammer astral soul was a type of forging-type astral soul. Uncle Black had once listed out many astral souls in the 5th heavenly layer for him, showing how vast Uncle Black's knowledge and experience was. According to this memory fragment, for a weaponsmith, other than being able to control the main forging techniques, the most important thing is to be able to inscribe divine imprints. For those who possess a forging-type astral soul, their advantage lies in being able to directly inscribe divine imprints within their body, and then directly use their astral soul to infuse the divine imprint into the divine weapon. Qin Wendian slowly digested the memories he had just obtained. This memory fragment even contained information about formations. Divine imprints were, in fact, a special type of formation. They were specially used to forge weapons, and were extremely complex. In the memory fragment, there were many foundational divine imprints, as well as blended divine imprints that needed to be comprehended slowly. The status of weaponsmiths in the Tianwu continent is extraordinary. Since I possess a forging-type astral soul, even if I become a first-level weaponsmith, I would still be able to forge divine weapons and exchange them for Yuan meteor stones. And if I become a second-level weaponsmith and join the Star River Association, my status would be even more extraordinary. Even in the royal capital, the royal clan or the Yi clan would have to tread lightly if they wanted to deal with me. Qin Wendian thought in his heart. The forging-type astral soul from the fifth heavenly layer was his talent, how could he not make good use of it? Since he had already been embroiled in this storm, he had to make plans for the future of his Qin clan. While cultivating, he had to become a weaponsmith. During these 5 days, Qin Wendian immersed himself in comprehending the divine imprints during the day, and at night, he meditated and cultivated the tempered thousand refinement technique. He paid no attention to the happenings in the outside world. Since Qin Hao had told him not to bother, he wouldn't bother, and would only focus on improving himself. At this moment, the training ground Qin Wendian was in, was filled with many pieces of metal. There were many complicated runic inscriptions engraved on them, and these were all the divine imprints he had inscribed over the past few days. These divine imprints seemed to have a life of their own as they floated above the metal pieces, interweaving together to form a picture of the divine imprint. Nowadays, my accuracy is getting higher and higher. Qin Wendian stood there. Within the astral meridians in his body, numerous divine imprints shimmered with the light of runic inscriptions. These unique divine imprints combined to form an incomparably sharp sword, possessing a powerful penetrative force. And in Qin Wendian's hand, a gigantic hammerhead that resembled an astral soul could be seen. Qin Wendian's footsteps trembled slightly. Momentarily, the divine imprints in his body flowed along his astral meridians, gushing towards his arm before flowing to the heavenly hammer. At the same time, Qin Wendian lifted his arm and ruthlessly smashed down towards the metal piece below. Clang! A crisp sound rang out as the heavenly hammer landed on the metal piece. Momentarily, on the surface of the metal piece, the divine imprint of a sharp sword shone with the luster of astral light, exuding an aura of sharpness. It was impossible to see the exact trajectory of the divine imprint, causing a look of joy to appear on Qin Wendian's face. Even the most important divine imprint isn't a problem when it comes to forging weapons. As expected of a natural-born weaponsmith. Qin Wendian laughed in a low voice. Although he was extremely satisfied with the divine imprint he inscribed, Qin Wendian still didn't know how much of an advantage he had when compared to other weaponsmiths. Chapter 18. In the Qin residence's great hall, the members of the Qin clan were gathered together, but their countenances were extremely unsightly. How's the situation in Sky Harmony City? Qin Chuan swept his gaze over the crowd as he inquired. Clan leader, it's already the end of the year. Many of the cultivators have already returned, but the situation in Sky Harmony City is still the same as before. Although the Qin clan's protectors have exerted a lot of pressure on the Silver Feather Regiment and the Chu Dragon Guards, the members of our Qin clan are frequently bullied and humiliated. There are even rumors circulating in Sky Harmony City that our Qin clan will not be able to overcome this crisis. What about the royal capital? Is there any news from the Emperor Star Academy? Qin Chuan asked again. Naturally, the Qin clan had their own information network in the royal capital. The royal capital. The countenances of the people below flickered as they replied, not many people in the royal capital know about what happened in Sky Harmony City. The news has been locked down, and Yi Wukei from the Yi clan stepped into the 9th level of arterial circulation a few days ago, increasing his speed of breaking through to Yuanfu. Even the Emperor's Star Academy felt the pressure, and in addition to the pressure from the royal clan, they are no longer as enthusiastic about young master's matter. Kacha! Qin Chuan clenched his fists tightly, as a sharp glint of light flashed in his eyes. Even with Wentian's talent, he still didn't receive enough attention. Yi Wukei's talent, as well as the pressure from the royal clan, have suppressed his radiance. Qin Chuan murmured in his heart, Wentian, I hope you can grow up faster and prove to those people that you're worthy. Pass down the message, tell the members of the Qin clan to reduce the number of times they go out. Also, send the Yuan meteor stones we have stored to Wentian. Qin Chuan's countenance flickered, causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble. It seemed like Qin Chuan wanted to nurture Qin Wentian at all costs. Even if the Qin clan were to meet with misfortune, he still wanted to leave behind a ray of hope. Qin Wentian quickly received the Yuan meteor stones Qin Chuan had sent over. This time around, there were 3 of them, causing Qin Wentian to feel a sense of unease in his heart. All these years, the Qin clan had been unable to make ends meet. Their resources were constantly being depleted, and could be said to be extremely poor. However, this also made Qin Wentian more determined to move forward. On this particular day, Qin Wentian walked out of the Qin mansion through the side door. The Silver Feather Knights were already stationed at the main entrance of the Qin mansion, and were confronting the people of the Qin mansion. However, they didn't dare to give the order to kill. Although they looked calm on the surface, Qin Wentian knew that there must be a turbulent undercurrent in the dark. This was a game. However, Qin Wentian didn't care about all this. Instead, he headed towards the Star River Association located in the central district of Sky Harmony City. The headquarters of the Star River Association was located in the capital of Chu, and the branch located in the Sky Harmony City was only a branch. Although the Star River Association had never interfered with the affairs of the outside world, it still had a lot of authority, and its power was immeasurable. In fact, Qin Wentian had heard that the headquarters of the Star River Association in the Sky Harmony City wasn't even the headquarters. Because of the special status of the Star River Association, Qin Wentian chose to come here. Firstly, he wanted to learn how to forge weapons, and secondly, he wanted to obtain a certain status in the Star River Association, so that he wouldn't be easily ambushed in the future. The Star River Association has a branch for weaponsmithing, alchemy, martial, and the Heavenly River. Foster father said that the Star River Association is the most mysterious power in the world, with unfathomable depths. Qin Wentian silently mused as he gazed at the majestic great hall in front of him. Qin Wentian. At this moment, a voice drifted over. Qin Wentian turned around, only to see a graceful silhouette appearing in front of him. It was none other than one of the 4 great beauties of the Sky Harmony City, Lin Yu. A few days ago, she had been accepted as a disciple by the Divine Wind Academy. After the annual sacrifice, Lin Yu wanted to head to the royal capital. Hence, she wanted to make some preparations, and came to the Star River Association to look for Grandmaster Francis to forge a divine weapon for her. After all, Grandmaster Francis was someone who could forge top-tier, first-level divine weapons. The Qin clan is about to be annihilated, yet you still have the mood to forge a divine weapon and prepare to head to the royal capital? Lin Yu couldn't help but smile when she saw Qin Wentian's expression. Qin Wentian frowned, as he coldly replied, even if your Lin clan is annihilated, the Qin clan will still exist. This Lin Yu immediately declared that the Qin clan was about to be annihilated, causing Qin Wentian to feel disgusted. Impudent. Lin Yu's countenance changed, as she swept her gaze over to Qin Wentian. She had always been pampered, and had never been talked back to before. She couldn't help but reprimand Qin Wentian, but soon after, she pursed her lips and smiled. I almost forgot, Qin Wentian is already a genius, and is no longer the Qin Wentian of the past. No wonder your mouth is so cheap. Cheap mouth? Qin Wentian was speechless. This woman must have gotten used to the attitude of a spoiled young miss. Casting a look of disgust at Lin Yu, Qin Wentian turned and walked away. You. Lin Yu could feel the disgust and contempt in Qin Wentian's eyes. Her countenance couldn't help but sink as she followed after him. Lin Yu was one of the 4 great beauties of Sky Harmony City, and was also a genius. She was extremely dazzling in Sky Harmony City, and every time she went out, her friends would flatter her. However, after Autumn Snow had awakened her astral soul, everyone felt that she was inferior to Autumn Snow. The fact that people from the royal capital had personally come for Autumn Snow caused her to feel extremely uncomfortable. During the examination that day, she had hoped to rely on her own talent to pass the examination of either the Emperor's Star Academy or the Royal Academy. However, she had failed, while Autumn Snow and Qin Wentian had easily passed the examination. Everyone's gazes were focused on the two of them, and no one paid any attention to her. She hated this feeling, and hated the look of contempt in Qin Wentian's eyes. It could be said that she was jealous of Qin Wentian in her heart. Qin Wentian was currently in the Great Hall of the Star River Association. There were many people in the spacious hall, and the moment they entered, they could see the reception area. Qin Wentian walked up, only to see that the receptionist was a beautiful maiden. This maiden was clad in a robe unique to the Star River Association, and it accentuated the curves of her body, causing it to be extremely alluring. "Do you need to forge weapons or concoct medicinal pills?" The lady smiled as she looked at Qin Wentian. The majority of those who came to the Star River Association were here for the purpose of forging weapons or concocting medicinal pills. "I wish to become an apprentice weaponsmith," Qin Wentian replied. "Oh, your luck today isn't bad. Grandmaster Francis will be here today, and I can recommend you." "Naturally, I can't guarantee that Grandmaster Francis will accept apprentices. You can go over there and wait." The lady didn't find it strange. There were many who came here to seek a master, hoping to become an apprentice of a grandmaster weaponsmith or an alchemist. Apprentice? Wishful thinking. Lin Yu, who was following behind Qin Wentian, mocked. It was extremely difficult to become a powerful weaponsmith, and there were some weaponsmiths who wouldn't teach their apprentices the divine inscriptions they had mastered. "Miss Lin Yu is here. Grandmaster Francis knows that you will be here today, and he will personally make a trip over later." The beautiful receptionist had a smile on her face as she saw Lin Yu walking forward. Her words caused the gazes of many in the great hall to shift onto Lin Yu. Was this the genius young lady who was about to join the Divine Wind Academy? She was indeed very beautiful. Many thanks to Grandmaster Francis. Lin Yu could feel the gazes of the crowd, as a smile appeared on her face. Grandmaster Francis and Master Lin are good friends, naturally he would take special care of you. That's right. Lin Yu, your father and I are old acquaintances. You don't have to address him as Grandmaster Francis, just call me Uncle Francis. A clear and bright voice drifted over. Francis, who was similarly clad in the Astral River robe, had a smile on his face as he walked over, as he spoke to Lin Yu. "Uncle Francis, I'll have to trouble you this time." Lin Yu's eyes were filled with complacency, as she unconsciously cast a glance at Qin Wentian. "No trouble at all. Lin Yu, since you have become a member of the Divine Wind Academy, what divine weapons do you need? If you have any special requests, just let me know. I will specially customize a divine weapon for you." "Uncle Francis, my astral soul is that of a rabbit, it's light and agile. I wish to forge a sword of 1 meter in length, and walk the path of nimbleness and agility." "Right, I will inscribe a divine featherwings imprint on the sword, reducing its weight and increasing its agility." Francis laughed. Lin Yu had a satisfied smile on her face. At this moment, the receptionist walked over, as she spoke to Francis. "Grandmaster Francis, the people over there all wish to forge a divine weapon. There's even one who wishes to become an apprentice. Those who wish to forge a divine weapon should have already recorded their requests as well as the remuneration they are willing to pay. Later on, let me take a look and I will choose the ones I want. Tell them to wait here 3 days later. As for the one who wishes to become an apprentice, who is it?" Francis spoke, causing the crowd to sigh silently. This was indeed a grandmaster. First writing down the requests and remuneration, then letting him choose whether or not to forge a divine weapon. In the Chu country, the status of a weaponsmith was extremely high. It's him. Lin Yu pointed to Qin Wentian, a fellow with a foul mouth. Qin Wentian frowned. It seemed that Lin Yu was the one who had a foul mouth. This woman really had the princess syndrome. Did he offend you, Lin Yu? Yes. Lin Yu nodded her head. Leave it to me. Francis laughed. Lin Yu, come here 3 days later to collect your divine weapon as well. As for the fellow who wishes to become an apprentice, follow me. Qin Wentian hesitated for a moment, but he still stood up and followed after Francis. Francis and Lin Yu called out to each other, as well as receiving a piece of paper from the receptionist. After which, he brought Qin Wentian to the left side of the Great Hall. Inside, there was a completely different world. This was the weaponsmithing branch of the Star River Association. As a first-level weaponsmith of the Star River Association, Francis had his own personal weaponsmithing hall. As Qin Wentian followed Francis into the weaponsmithing hall, a surge of scorching heat gushed over. The temperature of the room was extremely high, and in just an instant, Qin Wentian's forehead was already drenched in sweat. Come in. Francis stepped into the hall. Qin Wentian saw that there were a few rooms in the weaponsmithing hall, and the room he entered had a gigantic smelting furnace that was sunk deep into the ground. Below the furnace, terrifying flames were unceasingly blazing. Take a look around first. Francis casually spoke. Qin Wentian lightly nodded his head. He could feel the arrogance of Francis as a weaponsmith. He was only a first-level weaponsmith, yet he already had his own weaponsmithing hall. Not only that, there were many people who needed his help. From this, one could see the status of a weaponsmith. Here are the materials for the forging of weapons. Qin Wentian walked to the front of a side chamber. Inside, there were many containers with words engraved on them, and the metal materials required for the forging of weapons could be found. After which, Qin Wentian walked to the front of another chamber. Inside, there were many weapon models, such as sabers, spears, swords, halberds, shields, gloves, etc. Empty. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. He discovered that these weapon models were all empty. These are specially made weapon embryos, shaped into the shape of the divine weapon that is to be forged. There are even various runic patterns engraved on them. As long as the forging materials are melted into a liquid within the smelting furnace, the liquid will be injected into the embryos. After that, the liquid will solidify and cool down, and the embryos will be formed. Place those embryos at the side of the smelting furnace. I'm going to start the forging process. Francis's voice drifted over. Qin Wentian silently nodded his head, as he brought the embryos to the side of the smelting furnace. Francis was currently at the side, reading through his notes, most probably choosing which divine weapon to forge. A sword, a shield, a long spear, and 2 sabers. Inject the liquid within the smelting furnace into the embryos I'm talking about. Inject all the liquid into the smelting furnace. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. Even though he hadn't come into contact with the forging of weapons before, Qin Wentian understood that the forging of different divine weapons would require different amounts of materials. For example, a sword needed to be sharp, a shield needed to be thick and heavy. Hence, the requirements for the forging materials would naturally be different. What do you know? This smelting furnace is based on the golden ratio of the forging materials, and is sufficient to forge any weapon. As long as the forging process is completed, different divine imprints would be used to forge the weapon. The most important part of forging weapons are the divine imprints, do you understand? Francis coldly stated when he saw the doubt in Qin Wentian's eyes. Understood. Qin Wentian calmly replied, yet he was laughing coldly in his heart. This Francis was simply too lazy to spend time and effort on forging weapons. All the weapons were forged using the same materials, and after inscribing the divine imprints on them, he would be able to obtain rewards. The weaponsmith must be extremely wealthy. Chapter 19. Not only did weaponsmiths need to cultivate, they also needed to comprehend divine imprints and forge divine weapons. The majority of weaponsmiths would also accept missions to obtain wealth. Just like Francis, he naturally couldn't do his best to forge every single divine weapon. The liquid concocted by the smelting furnace was sufficient for him to forge many divine weapons. Qin Wendian followed Francis's instructions and infused the liquid into the embryonic weapon, before placing it into the forging trough to solidify. At this moment, Francis had already set up a small forging furnace beside the large smelting furnace as he instructed Qin Wendian, "Go to the material hall and help me retrieve half a gene of bronze, half a gene of silver sand, half a gene of blood rock, a small amount of astral steel and light aluminum. I want to forge a sword, and a light and nimble sword at that." In the memories Qin Wendian had obtained, there was naturally information regarding the materials required for forging weapons. Bronze was the main material, silver sand was used to make the sword shine with a brilliant luster, and the other materials were used to make the sword light and sharp. Especially the blood rock and astral steel, both of them were extremely precious metals. "Grandmaster, are you planning to forge a flexible sword for Lin Yu?" Qin Wendian probed. Francis swept a glance at him, as he coldly replied, "Seems like you have some knowledge, knowing that I want to forge a flexible sword. Lin Yu's father and I have some friendship, and she herself is also a genius in cultivation. Naturally, I have to do my best to forge a weapon for her." "Brat, you offended her because you wanted to attract her attention, right? But I advise you not to blindly think about it. If you are willing to be my apprentice for 3 years, I will bestow upon you some simple divine imprints for you to comprehend." 3 years, and only simple divine imprints? Qin Wendian murmured. Weaponsmiths truly valued divine imprints. "What, you think it's too long? Do you know the price I paid to obtain the Star River Association's divine imprints?" Francis coldly snorted as he continued, "Go and retrieve the materials." Qin Wendian lightly nodded his head, as he proceeded to the material hall to retrieve the materials Francis required. After which, he saw Francis placing the materials into the forging furnace. The flames here are all earth fire provided by the Star River Association. Without the aid of the Star River Association, many weaponsmiths wouldn't even be able to smelt the materials. The requirements to become a weaponsmith are indeed harsh. Qin Wendian sighed in his heart. Astral steel was an extremely tough material, and it was impossible for ordinary flames to melt it. The higher the grade of the divine weapon, the harder it was to melt the materials. Naturally, the most important to a weaponsmith was the divine inscriptions. And the inscriptions were the inscriptions to be. After placing all the materials into the forging furnace, Francis waited for cracks to appear on the surface of the embryonic sword before asking Qin Wendian to place the embryonic sword on top of the forging stone. With a tap of his finger, the embryonic sword broke apart, revealing the blazing sword within. Divine weapons have to be, and it. That. Are divine weapons. Francis faintly spoke. After which, the astral energy in his body fluctuated as he stretched out his finger. Resplendent astral energy gushed forth from his fingertip, transforming into an astral carving knife. This is an astral soul. Francis's astral soul is a carving knife. Although it can't be considered a foundry astral soul, it's not bad to use it to inscribe divine inscriptions. Qin Wendian silently mused. After which, Francis used his carving knife astral soul to inscribe divine inscriptions on the surface of the crimson sword, not bothering to hide from Qin Wendian. The divine inscriptions were incomparably complicated, intersecting with each other. It was hard to see with the naked eye, as though they were the arteries and veins of the human body. However, what Francis didn't expect was that Qin Wendian could see his actions so clearly. This is a sword-shaped divine inscription. It can increase the sharpness of the sword, as well as amplify the attack power. However, Francis's inscription is a little crude. Qin Wendian's heart was as clear as a mirror, but he naturally wouldn't say it out loud. This Francis didn't have a foundry astral soul, and was using his hands to inscribe divine inscriptions. In fact, Francis knew that his carving knife astral soul didn't have much of an advantage in terms of cultivation, which was why he spent so much effort on the path of forging divine inscriptions. Not only that, he had some achievements, but he didn't expect that he would be looked down upon by Qin Wentian in his heart. If you can learn these divine inscriptions, you would have no worries in your entire life. Francis naturally didn't know what Qin Wentian was thinking. He was still in a state of contentment, smiling as he glanced at Qin Wentian. After which, he inscribed the divine inscriptions on all the weapons, and waited for them to completely cool down before he started to polish them, sharpen them, and finally, attach them to the scabbards and other decorative tools. As for the divine inscriptions inscribed on the weapons, they completely disappeared after the forging process was completed. It was as though the divine inscriptions were embedded within the divine weapon, becoming a part of it. Give it a try. Francis passed a completed divine weapon to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian held onto the sword, as astral energy gushed forth from his body, seeping into the sword. Momentarily, he felt as though he was connected to the divine inscriptions, as though the divine inscriptions were a part of his body. Astral energy flowed into the divine inscriptions, stimulating the might of the divine inscriptions. How miraculous! Qin Wentian had never cultivated before, and naturally, he had never come into contact with divine weapons before. He didn't expect that the divine inscriptions would actually have such a miraculous effect. You've clearly seen the forging process today. If you really wish to be my apprentice for a long period of time, I will focus on inscribing the divine inscriptions, and leave the other tasks to you. How about it? Francis asked Qin Wentian. Grandmaster Francis, I won't be coming here often, but if I have the time, I will naturally help you with these tasks. Not only that, I don't need any compensation. Qin Wentian replied. The forging process today was already clear to him. In his memories, there was already a method of forging a divine weapon, but after all, he had to personally experience it before he could understand it better. For the forging of a weapon, the most important thing was still the inscription of the divine inscriptions. For the other tasks, one only needed to know how to use different materials to forge different divine weapons. Of course, the sharpening of the blades also required technique. As for flames, there was no need to worry about that in the Star River Association. Precisely because everything in the Star River Association was ready-made, Francis was able to mass-produce low-grade, first-level divine weapons. But even if it was a low-grade, first-level divine weapon, to those at the body refinement realm, it was still an extremely valuable treasure. You don't know what's good for you. Francis coldly snorted as he continued, I'll go take a rest first. Help me tidy up the discarded items and throw them away. As Qin Wentian watched Francis depart, he couldn't help but muse that this fellow was truly sinister. It was obvious that he could forge ordinary divine weapons in a single day, yet he wanted someone else to collect them in 3 days. This made it seem like he needed to spend a lot of time forging divine weapons. Naturally, if Francis wanted to focus on forging a divine weapon, he would indeed require 3 days. Just like how he helped Lin Yu forge a divine weapon, it was not an easy task to inscribe divine imprints. Especially if there was a slight error during the inscribing process, it would mean that the forging process had failed. After Francis left, Qin Wentian went to retrieve a sword-shaped divine weapon. After which, he injected the golden ratio liquid into the divine weapon, as he prepared to personally test it out. According to the memories I've obtained, divine imprints and divine weapons can be divided into 10 levels. First-level divine weapons require a first-level divine imprint to be forged, while second-level divine weapons require a second-level divine imprint to be forged. These divine imprints are all derived from the combination of basic divine imprints, and the higher the level of the divine imprint, the harder it is to comprehend. There are even some third-level divine imprints that I can't even comprehend. Qin Wentian silently mused. When cracks appeared on the cooled divine weapon, he placed the divine imprint onto the forging stone. With a flick of his palm, the divine imprint shattered the forging stone. Staring at the red-hot sword, the astral energy within Qin Wentian's body frenziedly interweaved, converging bit by bit, forming a magnificent diagram. This was a sword-shaped divine imprint. This divine imprint was a first-level divine imprint, flying sword. On top of his palm, an astral heavenly hammer appeared, continuously changing the shape of the sword. The astral divine imprint within his body also flowed towards the heavenly hammer, imprinting itself onto its base. Qin Wentian raised his palms, before abruptly smashing downwards onto the flying sword. The divine imprint on the heavenly hammer directly imprinted itself onto the flying sword, transforming into the veins and arteries of the flying sword. Who? Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. He didn't know how effective it would be. Keeping the heavenly hammer, Qin Wentian started to use his tools to polish the flying sword. However, just as he was about to finish the last step, Francis hurriedly rushed over. Upon seeing Qin Wentian's actions, his countenance stiffened as he asked with a frown, "What are you doing?" "Grandmaster Francis, I want to see if I can polish the flying sword myself." Qin Wentian replied. "Where do you think this place is? The amount of liquid you used up is enough for me to forge a divine weapon. Do you think you can afford to compensate me?" Francis's countenance was filled with rage. Walking to the side of Qin Wentian, he flicked his sleeves, causing the unsharpened flying sword of Qin Wentian to fall onto the ground. "Today, Grandmaster Murin is here to take a look. Count yourself lucky." "Scram immediately," Francis coldly stated. Evidently, he didn't expect that an apprentice would be so impudent. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. This Francis was a weaponsmith, yet he was still so arrogant. Snorting coldly, Qin Wentian flicked his sleeves as he left. "You don't know what's good for you. To think that I actually wanted to take pity on you," Francis angrily stated. At this moment, Qin Wentian had already walked out, only to see a few silhouettes coincidentally walking in his direction. All of them were clad in astral river robes, and the person in the lead exuded an extraordinary aura. Beside him was a beautiful young lady, and on the other side was an old man. Murin was the previous leader of the weaponsmithing branch of the Star River Association in Sky Harmony City. However, he had already been transferred to the royal capital, and this time around, he came back to see if the weaponsmiths here had any improvements. Qin Wentian brushed past this group of people. That young lady merely cast a glance at Qin Wentian, and that gaze caused Qin Wentian to feel the arrogance of weaponsmiths. They were all extremely prideful people. "Francis, why are you so angry?" Murin and the rest entered Francis's weaponsmithing room. "Grandmaster Murin, President." Francis bowed to the newcomers. At this moment, his face was filled with smiles, with no trace of anger. Murin nodded his head, as he stepped into the weaponsmithing branch. After which, he stated, "Let's see how your current weaponsmithing standard is." As he spoke, he coincidentally saw the sword lying beside the forging stone. Involuntarily, he picked it up. Sometimes, looking at a failed product, one would be able to tell the level of a person. Just as Francis was about to speak, he saw the expression on Murin's face abruptly change. Turning around, he exclaimed in surprise, "Francis, your weaponsmithing standard has improved so much?" Francis froze, as Murin passed the sword back to him. With an intention of his will, astral energy and the yuan energy of heaven and earth flowed into the sword, causing his countenance to change into one of extreme amazement. "How is this possible?" Francis couldn't believe it. "This sword is lacking in terms of the materials used. You should have used the melted liquid from the smelting furnace to forge it, but the exquisiteness of the divine imprint made me blush with shame. Although it's only a first-level divine imprint, it's already at the peak of perfection. I'm afraid that you're not far from becoming a second-level weaponsmith." Murin smiled at Francis as he continued, "After the new year, I intend to bring an assistant with me to the royal capital. Now that I've decided on the person to be my assistant, Francis, are you certain that this sword was forged by you?" Francis hesitated for a moment, before gritting his teeth. Such an opportunity couldn't be missed. "Of course." Fine, I'll give you 3 days' time. Do your best to forge a divine weapon, and let me see your pinnacle standards. Murin laughed, as he turned and left. Francis's heart pounded, as his countenance paled. Earlier, he was too greedy and didn't want to miss this opportunity, hence he admitted to it. But now, how could he inscribe that divine imprint? That brat, yes, I must find him. Francis's heart pounded. If he couldn't find Qin Wentian, he would be finished. Chapter 20. Qin Wentian felt depressed as he left the Star River Association. He wanted to see if the Xian imprints he inscribed could be used to forge a Xian weapon. Who would have thought that he would be chased out of the Star River Association? But at the very least, he understood the process of forging a weapon. This would be of great help to him. In the future, if he had the same conditions as the forging hall, he would be able to forge a weapon himself. By the time he returned to the Qin residence, it was already dusk. This time, he came to the main entrance, wanting to see the situation outside. Qin Wentian stopped not too far away from the Qin residence. In front of him, a group of armored knights had already surrounded the Qin residence. Do they really dare to make a move on the Qin residence? Qin Wentian's countenance was unsightly. Seeing Qin Chuan and the rest gathered there, he urged his horse forward. Those who surrounded the Qin residence did not obstruct Qin Wentian, allowing him to meet up with Qin Chuan and the rest. Wentian, enter the residence first. Qin Chuan said as he saw Qin Wentian approaching. I can't avoid it. The first batch of candidates has already been selected. Qin Wentian is one of them. Commander Wu will be arriving soon. The commander of the Silver Feather Knight Regiment, Ice Hawk, coldly laughed. The people he was waiting for would arrive soon. He was in no hurry. Qin Wentian walked in front of Qin Yao, a questioning look on his face. Do you still remember what that old man from the Yi clan said after the academy's examination? The people from the godly General Martial Palace will be arriving soon. You, me, Qin Shang, and Qin Ji will be the first batch to be forcibly taken away. Qin Yao's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. Qin Wentian immediately thought back to the time when the examination had ended. Yi Mo had said that the emperor had bestowed the talented members of the Qin clan the right to cultivate in the godly General Martial Palace. Now, the emperor wanted to enforce it. Commander Wu's name is Wu Xiu Luo. His methods are extremely ruthless, and his strength is extremely strong. Qin Yao added. Luo Wu Xiu Luo of the godly General Martial Palace was extremely famous in the various academies in the royal capital. If the Yi clan understands the Qin clan well enough, they would know that the Qin clan will definitely not hand over our people. I'm afraid that the reason why Wu Xiu and Luo Ruo are here is not as simple as just the 4 of us. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice, causing the hearts of the crowd to sink. The reason why these people hadn't acted yet was because they were afraid of the Qin clan's final hidden strength, the Martial King's guards. In the distance, on the main road, the setting sun cast a shadow on a group of people. A group of armored horses galloped through the air as they slowly entered the field of vision of the crowd. There were 2 people at the very front. One was a middle-aged man with dark skin, and his gaze gave off a sinister and ruthless feeling. Beside him was a youth of about 16 or 17 years of age. His eyes were as sharp as a wild beast's, giving off a sense of danger. Wu Xiu, Luo, and his disciple, Yi Lang from the Yi family. Qin Yao gazed at the 2 people in front of her as she replied. Yi Lang changed his name to Yi Lang after he awakened his demonic wolf astral soul. He is the cousin of Yi Wuke, and is currently cultivating in the godly General Martial Palace. Although he is young, his methods are extremely ruthless. His cultivation base is at the peak of the body refinement realm, and his explosive strength is extremely strong. He has even killed cultivators who have just stepped into the arterial circulation realm. Qin Chuan. Wu Xiu Luo's ice-cold voice rang out, as he stared at the members of the Qin clan. Qin Yao, Qin Wentian, Qin Shang, and Qin Ji, the four of you may follow me to the godly General Martial Palace to cultivate. Qin Chuan thanks His Majesty for his kindness. However, my Qin clan has its own arrangements for the cultivation of the younger generation. There's no need for Commander Wu to worry. Qin Chuan calmly replied. The corners of Wu Xiu Luo's mouth curled up in a mocking smile. The youth beside him galloped forward, pointed his finger at Qin Chuan and said, "Old fool, don't be so shameless when I give you face. My master is being polite to you, but don't think that you're someone important. Your Qin clan's trash have the opportunity to enter the godly General Martial Palace. You should be kneeling down and thanking us for our kindness." Impudent. The members of the Qin clan had expressions of anger on their faces. This youth actually dared to point at Qin Chuan and scold him. Is there no one to discipline the younger generation of the Yi clan? Qin Chuan swept his gaze at Yi Lang. Discipline? Yi Lang stared at the members of the Qin clan with a look of disdain in his eyes. Although he wasn't even 16 years of age, his eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty, bestial nature. Pointing his finger at the youths behind Qin Chuan, he stated, "Do you believe that I can squash you all to death with a single hand? What an arrogant fellow. I really want to see how you can squash us to death." A member of the younger generation of the Qin clan couldn't endure Yi Lang's humiliation any longer. With a roar of anger, he dashed towards Yi Lang. "Qin Mu, come back!" Qin Chuan shouted, only to see Yi Lang's lips curling up in a cruel smile. His body bent into the shape of a bow, akin to a wild beast. The aura exuding from him was extremely cold, and the warhorse he was riding on was trembling uncontrollably. It directly prostrated itself on the ground, with white foam coming out of its mouth. Buzz! Yi Lang's silhouette transformed into a gray blur, directly disappearing from sight. What a fast speed! A.O. A howl of agony rang out, accompanied by the sounds of bones breaking. Qin Mu's body was flung through the air, ruthlessly slamming into the ground. The bones in his body were all shattered by the immense force. Kacha! Yi Lang stomped heavily on the ground, causing a huge crack to appear on the ground. From this, one could see how strong his strength was. Staring at Qin Mu's body with the eyes of a wild beast, Yi Lang howled as he lunged forward once again. His palms transformed into sharp claws, directly aiming for Qin Mu's head. If this terrifying claw landed, Qin Mu's head would definitely explode. The countenances of the members of the Qin clan drastically changed. Many of them even closed their eyes. Qin Mu could be considered one of the strongest among the younger generation of the Qin clan. With a cultivation base at the 9th level of the body refinement realm, he couldn't even withstand a single strike. What was even more hateful was that Yi Lang actually dared to kill someone. Impudent. Abruptly, Qin Chuan's palm grabbed onto Yi Lang's arm, which was about to land on Qin Mu's head. Qin Mu, who was on the ground, had cold sweat dripping down his forehead. He stared at Yi Lang's eyes, feeling a lingering fear in his heart. Yi Lang inclined his head, staring at Qin Chuan in front of him. His beast-like eyes flashed with disdain. If the young can't do it, the old can do it. After speaking, Yi Lang retracted his arm, and walked a few steps in front of the members of the Qin clan. "Do you want me to help you discipline these trash? If one of them can't do it, we can all come at you together." Although Qin Chuan was enraged, he sighed in his heart. Although he had lived in the Sky Harmony City for a long time, he was very clear about the happenings in the royal capital. Not to mention Yi Wukei, there were also a few youths from the Yi clan. Among the younger generation of the Qin clan, there weren't many who could contend against them. This wasn't only because of their talent, but also because of the disparity in cultivation resources between the declining Qin clan and the glorious Yi clan. Arrogant, too arrogant. The countenances of the members of the Qin clan turned ashen. Qin Yao couldn't help but exclaim, "Yi Lang, you're too arrogant." Yi Lang's gaze landed on Qin Yao. His eyes roamed over Qin Yao's body, and even ruthlessly stared at Qin Yao's chest, revealing a hint of desire. This caused Qin Yao's countenance to abruptly turn unsightly. Qin Yao, although your talent is ordinary, your looks aren't bad. How about becoming my concubine? Yi Lang stared at Qin Yao as he spoke, causing the youths of the Qin clan to be incomparably enraged. Qin Yao was the pearl of the Qin clan, and one of the 4 great beauties of the Sky Harmony City. Not only was her looks outstanding, but her talent was also exceedingly high. Yet, this Yi Lang actually dared to say that he wanted to take her as his concubine? Qin Yao took a step forward, but was pulled back by Qin Wentian, who was beside her. Qin Wentian stared at Yi Lang. After stepping onto the path of cultivation, he had yet to unleash his true strength. He really wanted to give it a try. Sister, let me do it. Qin Wentian revealed a gentle smile to Qin Yao. Wentian, Yi Lang's strength is terrifying, extremely terrifying. Qin Yao shook her head. Although Qin Wentian's talent was outstanding, he had only stepped onto the path of cultivation for a short period of time. He definitely wasn't a match for the ruthless Yi Lang. Dealing with this kind of scum, I'm afraid I'll dirty my hands. Qin Wentian was still smiling as he pinched Qin Yao's cheeks, causing Qin Yao to be stunned. She glared at Qin Wentian. This fellow still had the mood to fool around at this moment. However, she understood Qin Wentian. This fellow always had a sloppy and carefree attitude, as though nothing mattered to him. However, being together with him was extremely heartwarming. Be careful. Qin Yao cautioned. Don't worry. Qin Wentian scratched his head as he walked out with a smile. He stared at the ruthless eyes of Yi Lang. This Yi Lang was about the same age as him, yet he was definitely a ruthless character. Not only that, he was extremely arrogant and had no regard for anyone and everyone. Qin Wentian. Yi Lang stared at Qin Wentian with a hint of playfulness in his eyes, as well as coldness. I will cripple the hand you used to touch Qin Yao. I heard that your cultivation base is at the peak of the body refinement realm. Although I'm only at the 6th level of the body refinement realm, I still want to see how you plan to cripple my hand. Qin Wentian indifferently stated. I will suppress my strength to the 6th level of the body refinement realm. I'll let you know how weak the geniuses of the Qin clan are. Yi Lang's eyes flickered. After which, he lunged forward, akin to a wolf galloping through the wilderness. Even the sound of the wind whistling could be heard. Yi Lang's sharp claws directly slashed towards Qin Wentian's head. The sound of bones cracking could be heard, and the heavenly wolf claw shone with a gloomy light. He had indeed suppressed his strength, but it was still terrifying enough. When Qin Wentian saw Yi Lang suppressing his cultivation base, a cold light flashed in his eyes. His demeanor was completely different from before, and was now filled with a tyrannical and domineering aura, filled with a dangerous aura. The astral energy within his body revolved frenziedly, gushing towards his arm. Boom! Qin Wentian stepped out, as his arm whistled through the air, akin to a soaring dragon, looking down on everything in its path. The cold heavenly wolf claw collided with the dragon's subduing fist, emitting a terrifying sound. Yi Lang let out a low growl. He felt as though his sharp claws were about to shatter. An extremely dangerous aura flashed in his eyes. You dare to lie to me? Yi Lang's body trembled violently as his blood and qi churned. He roared. This wasn't the strength of a 6th level of the body refinement realm. Yi Lang's aura completely exploded out, as crackling sounds rang out from his body. He first retreated a few steps due to the force of Qin Wentian's attack, but the current him was even more dangerous than before, as he was accumulating his strength. A raging wind gusted by as Yi Lang lunged out once more. That terrifying aura of coldness caused the entire space to be oppressed. Qin Wentian felt as though the entire heavens and earth had been occupied by the coldness, as though numerous demonic wolves were trying to devour him. What a powerful aura! Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. This surge of power was sufficient to crush him. However, at this moment, the astral energy within his body became even more terrifying, as though a storm was gathering in his astral meridians. The astral energy stored within his body was completely squeezed out, flowing through his astral meridians into his arms. At this moment, Qin Wendian felt as though he was filled with boundless strength. Chapter 21. The members of the Qin clan were all extremely nervous when they saw Yi Lang pouncing towards Qin Wendian. Yi Lang's palms trembled, and his entire person transformed into a demonic wolf. The shadow of the demonic wolf lunged towards Qin Wendian, howling in rage, wanting to tear Qin Wendian into shreds. Demonic wolf astral soul, no wonder Yi Lang exuded the aura of a wild beast. The countenances of the spectators froze, only to see Qin Yao lunging towards Qin Wendian. She released her astral soul, and it was in the form of an ancient tree. Her first astral soul was an ancient tree astral soul. Yi Lang, scram! Qin Yao's voice rang out, as numerous sharp ancient wooden swords transformed into sharp swords, flying towards Yi Lang. The tyrannical Yuan energy fused into her innate technique, causing the arterial circulation pathway to erupt forth, unleashing a terrifying might. This was the symbol of someone at the arterial circulation realm. Shatter! At this moment, Yi Lang was like a madman, exuding a terrifying aura of wildness. He was like a wild beast, tearing apart the sharp swords made of ancient wooden swords. His strength towered up to the heavens, as he continued to lunge towards Qin Wendian. Roar! At this moment, Qin Wendian's arms transformed into a towering gigantic hammer, filled with resplendent astral light. After which, the gigantic hammer transformed into an azure dragon, roaring through the 9 heavens. It was as though a gigantic dragon had descended upon Yi Lang. The cold wolf king and the tyrannical azure dragon clashed against each other, as a hurricane ravaged the area. Qin Wendian and Yi Lang both retreated explosively, their feet leaving deep marks on the ground. Wendian. Qin Yao's countenance drastically changed. The ancient wooden swords directly bound Qin Wendian's body. Qin Wendian slammed into Qin Yao's body, and finally stopped his retreat. He could feel his entire body devoid of strength, as bloody scars could be seen on his fists, from which fresh blood flowed unceasingly. How strong! The difference between our cultivation levels is too great. Qin Wendian thought to himself. At this moment, the power of the stars stored in his limbs and bones seemed to have been exhausted by that strike, and he was very weak. As expected of an astral soul condensed from an astral soul from the 5th heavenly layer. In addition to the astral meridians I've condensed, I was actually able to condense all the astral energy in my body into a single strike, allowing me to withstand Yi Lang's all-out attack. But at the same time, the astral energy in my body was completely depleted. At this moment, Yi Lang was even more shocked. He was actually pushed back, and his sharp claws that were hanging in the air were covered in blood. Qin Wendian was actually able to injure him. I want you dead. Yi Lang let out a bestial roar as he stared at Qin Wendian. As the sound of his voice faded, he stepped forward step by step. The aura of a wild beast around him grew stronger and stronger, and with every step he took, the ground beneath him would collapse. If you continue to be so presumptuous, don't blame me for being impolite, Qin Chuan said coldly when he saw that Yi Lang was still unwilling to give up. At the same time, Wu Xiao Luo's eyes flashed with a ruthless light. This Qin Wendian was a formidable character, and he had to be eliminated. Go and bring Qin Wendian, Qin Yao, and the other 2 here. Those who obstruct us will be treated as disobeying the emperor's orders, Wu Xiao Luo coldly commanded. Capture them. Yi Mo and Icehawk spoke at the same time. In an instant, an oppressive aura enveloped the entire space, as the spear-wielding soldiers advanced towards the Qin residence, causing people to feel suffocated. Just as they gave the command, a group of archers suddenly rushed out from within the Qin residence, instantly forming into a few rows. The horned gigantic bows were pulled back into the shape of a full moon, filled with the beauty of strength. Seems like the Qin residence is going to rebel, Yi Mo coldly stated, as he directly soared into the skies, dashing towards the direction of the archers. Pu. The bowstrings vibrated, as the arrows pierced through the air, shooting towards the direction of the night regiment. The arrows transformed into a rain of arrows, as they pierced through the air, emitting a terrifying sharp whistling sound. Similarly, there were many arrows that were directly aimed at Yi Mo, who was in the air. Above Yi Mo's head, 2 astral souls were simultaneously released. The first astral soul was the goshawk astral soul, granting him agility and speed, as well as ferocious attacks. The second astral soul was akin to a tall mountain, condensed from a constellation within a mountain. The stone mountain astral soul was able to transform his skin into stone, allowing him to attack and defend at the same time. Yi Mo's eyes were as sharp as a hawk's, as he blasted out with his rock-like palms. The strength of his palms could topple mountains and overturn seas, destroying everything in its path. All the whistling arrows were shattered into pieces in the air. Yi Mo's cultivation base was at the Yuanfu realm, and he had already awakened 2 astral souls. He had even opened his 3rd astral gate, it was just that he had yet to condense his 3rd astral soul. At this moment, behind the group of archers, 2 old men appeared. One of them glanced at Yi Mo, who was in the air, as he also soared towards the clouds. Martial guards? Wu Xiao Luo was still on his warhorse, his eyes gleaming with a cold light. These silhouettes that appeared should be the all-powerful martial guards that followed Qin Wu in the past. It was just that the martial guards now no longer had the glory of the past. Retreat to the Qin clan. Qin Chuan roared in rage as he saw the Qin clan's cavalry sweeping towards them. In the direction where Qin Wentian was, Yi Lang rushed towards him like a wild beast. There were experts on his left and right, allowing him to use his full strength to rush forward. Those from the Qin clan who tried to block him were instantly heavily injured. Qin Yao carried Qin Wentian as she retreated continuously. Her countenance was extremely unsightly as she stared at Yi Lang in front of her. This beast-like youth wanted to kill Qin Wentian. Let me block him. A silhouette appeared in front of Qin Yao and Qin Wentian, as a leg swept out. Boom! Yi Lang used his arm to block the leg that weighed over 10,000 jin, while his other hand directly grabbed onto the leg. A ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. Qin Shao, retreat. Qin Yao's countenance stiffened, but it was already too late. Yi Lang's knife hand chopped downwards, landing on Qin Shao's thigh. In an instant, Qin Shao let out an ear-piercing scream as he fell to the ground. His countenance was deathly pale, as one of his legs was chopped off by the knife hand. Qin Yao and the rest had already retreated to the entrance of the Qin clan. Even more martial guards rushed out, forming a powerful barrier. Yi Lang inclined his head and glanced at Qin Wentian, before shifting his gaze to Qin Shao. His fist punched out explosively, landing on Qin Shao's head. Blood splattered everywhere, splattering onto Yi Lang's face, making him look even more ferocious. Qin Yao, I will make you my plaything, my female slave. I will play with you whenever I want. Yi Lang's voice was ice-cold, as he licked the blood from the corner of his mouth. Qin Yao's delicate body trembled slightly, she was infuriated. All of you, retreat! Qin Chuan shouted. Wu Xiao and Luo Nan had once again led their troops forward. Now, even if the Qin clan mobilized their martial guards, it would still be difficult for them to defend against the strength of their opponents. Qin Yao's eyes burned with fury, as if she hadn't heard Qin Chuan's words. But at this moment, Qin Wentian grabbed Qin Yao's hand, as he said, Sister, let's enter the Qin clan. Wentian, Qin Shao, he. Qin Yao's eyes were bloodshot. Although Qin Shao wasn't her blood brother, he was still a member of the Qin clan. His ancestors had followed Qin Wu through many battles, and had the same surname as the Qin. Although they were from the branch family, the Qin clan had never treated them as outsiders. I will definitely avenge him, definitely. Qin Wentian's calm voice contained a terrifying coldness. At this moment, his calm eyes were filled with a bestial rage, as he glared at Yi Lang. Remember me, I will kill you. Qin Wentian swore that he would definitely kill Yi Lang. He won't be the first. Yi Lang stepped on Qin Zhao's body, as his eyes gleamed with a demonic light. Qin Wentian pulled Qin Yao and entered the Qin clan. At the same time, the rain of arrows from the martial guards forced the people outside to retreat. With the presence of the martial guards, it wouldn't be easy for them to invade the Qin clan. After Qin Wentian and the rest entered the Qin clan was already in a state of chaos. They didn't expect that the Yi clan and their troops would actually launch an attack on the Qin clan. Yao bring Wentian to rest. Also, Qin Shang and Qin Ji, all of you return. There's no need for you to worry about anything here, just focus on your cultivation. Qin Chuan's gaze swept over Qin Yao and the rest, as his countenance turned heavy. Father, we want to stay behind to help. Qin Yao said, unwilling to give up. Go back. Qin Chuan berated, all of you, remember this. This is an unprecedented crisis for our Qin clan. If the Qin clan loses this battle, we will spare no expense to ensure your safety. All of you are the future of the Qin clan. The Qin clan will not lose. Tears flowed down from Qin Yao's eyes. I'm only saying, if. Since they are so unfaithful, your grandfather will know what to do. As long as we hold on for a few more days, there will be hope for the Qin clan. Qin Chuan spoke, causing Qin Yao and the rest to heave a sigh of relief. It seemed like the Qin clan's grandfather still had a backup plan. The Qin clan must not be destroyed like this. Father, I'm going to cultivate. Qin Wentian spoke to Qin Chuan, as he turned and left, causing Qin Yao and the rest to be stunned. Nobody saw that Qin Wentian's tightly clenched fists had traces of blood flowing out. That was the result of his fingernails piercing into his flesh. Qin Chuan stared at the back view of Qin Wentian, as a sharp glint flickered in his eyes. Yao if something really happens, and I ask you to protect Wentian, what will you do? Qin Yao's body violently trembled, as she stared at her father in a daze. Tears flowed down her cheeks, yet a smile could be seen in her eyes. Father, as long as Wentian is alive, I will be alive. Child. Qin Chuan gazed at Qin Yao, as a doting expression could be seen in his eyes. Wentian's mental fortitude is unimaginable, and now that he has displayed such shocking talent, I hope that there will be one person in the Qin clan who will be able to topple this cold and emotionless emperor in the future. Chapter 22. Qin Wentian felt extremely unbearable. He had personally witnessed Qin Zhao's head being smashed apart by Yi Lang in front of him. Yi Lang's malevolent smile had already been imprinted into his mind. Yi Lang. Clenching his fists tightly, Qin Wentian sat in the training grounds and drew in a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. A debt of blood must be repaid with blood. The sky had already darkened, and in that instant, Qin Wentian seemed to have entered into his own world. The commotion in the outside world had no effect on him. Above his head, a resplendent light blossomed, as his heavenly hammer astral soul appeared. In an instant, from the fifth heavenly layer, his astral soul, the heavenly hammer constellation, shone with resplendent light, resonating with his astral soul, transforming into an illusory, resplendent light in the night sky. The 2 yuan meteor stones were placed on top of the astral soul on top of his head, and were actually guided by the astral energy from the astral soul. The astral energy contained within the yuan meteor stones also flowed into Qin Wentian's astral soul, undergoing the tempering of the astral soul, transforming into the heavenly hammer astral energy that flowed into Qin Wentian's limbs and bones. Stellar martial cultivators condensed their astral souls from their constellations, absorbing the unique astral energy from their constellations. Yi Lang's astral soul was the demonic wolf constellation, and the astral energy he absorbed was filled with a wild and untamed nature. Qin Wentian's astral soul was the heavenly hammer constellation, which was why his astral energy was endowed with tyrannical attack and forging attributes. Previously, when Qin Wentian directly absorbed the astral energy from the yuan meteor stones, there was no way it could be compared to the astral energy from the heavenly hammer constellation. Hence, he first absorbed the astral energy from the Yuan meteor stones into his astral soul, before using the astral energy to temper the impure astral energy. Although he understood that doing so would result in the loss of a significant amount of astral energy. Not long after, Qin Wendian could feel that his limbs and bones were filled with astral energy. After which, he circulated the tempered thousand hammer refinement technique, causing rumbling sounds to reverberate throughout his body. His blood and qi churned violently, akin to the roaring of a raging river, causing the muscles on Qin Wendian's face to contort. How could he not feel the agony of using the astral energy from the Yuan meteor stones to temper his body? Yet, his body of flesh and blood also grew stronger and stronger, to the point of perfection. On the second day, the news of the Qin clan being surrounded and annihilated spread throughout the entire Sky Harmony city. Many of the people who came to the Qin residence sighed ruefully. The Qin clan, which had once been the most powerful in the past, was now a thing of the past. Outside of the Qin residence, the Chu Dragon Guards of Sky Harmony City, the Silver Feather Knights of Icehawk, and the Azura Martial Knights of Azura, these three powerful armies surrounded the Qin residence so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. Occasionally, they would rush up to the Qin residence and launch sneak attacks, probing the Qin residence's defenses. The members of the Qin residence stubbornly resisted, and the martial cultivators and martial guards of the Qin residence, who were proficient in combat, guarded the main gates. When the spectators saw this scene, they felt that the Qin clan wouldn't be able to hold on for more than a few more days. There's only 2 more days until the annual sacrifice day. I wonder if the Qin clan will be able to hold on until next year. Many people silently mused. The annual sacrifice day was the last day of every year, and was also the day to pay respects to the ancestors. Within the Qin clan, a stifling pressure enveloped the entire Qin clan. Qin Chuan and the other important members of the clan gathered together to discuss countermeasures. The 3 great knight regiments, as long as the enemy gives the order, we have to face them head-on. With the strength of our Qin clan, we have no hope at all. Qin Chuan gazed at the crowd as he spoke. How strong are the Wu guards? Someone asked Qin Chuan. Not to mention the troops outside, even the people within the Qin clan didn't know much about the strength of the Wu guards. The Wu guards are all elites. In terms of the number of experts, we should be able to hold them off. But overall, the disparity is too great. What about those who were loyal to the Wu king? Won't they lead their troops here? The old master should have made arrangements, but distant water can't quench the present thirst. The people outside don't seem to be in a hurry to launch an all-out attack, and they seem to be very confident. This is what I'm worried about. Qin Chuan sighed. In the vast great hall, only his voice could be heard. After a moment of silence, Qin Wendian spoke. Once the enemy launches an all-out attack, I will deploy a division of forces. Qin He, Qin Yi, the 2 of you will be in charge. Bring Qin Yao, Qin Wendian, Qin Shang and the rest of the younger generation away. You are not allowed to fight, you are only allowed to escape. Big brother, I won't be a coward. Qin Yi roared. Our achievements in the martial Dao are limited. The younger generations are the future of the Qin clan. I'm entrusting the future of the Qin clan to you, not because I want you to be cowards. Do you understand? Qin Chuan slammed his fist on the table as he roared in anger, causing Qin Ye's countenance to freeze. There's no need to discuss this matter. Those who defy my orders are not fit to be a man of my Qin clan. Qin Chuan's voice caused everyone to be speechless. Qin Yao and the rest of the younger generation were all present, including Qin Wendian. Their hearts were filled with anger, and they wanted nothing more than to rush out and slaughter the enemy. Clan leader. At this moment, someone walked in from outside. As he spoke to Qin Chuan, clan leader, Grandmaster Francis from the Star River Association requests an audience. Star River Association. Qin Chuan had a look of astonishment on his face as he replied, invite him in. A moment later, Francis stepped into the great hall. Upon seeing him, a strange expression involuntarily appeared on Qin Wendian's face. Francis pays his respects to Lord Qin Chuan. Grand Master Francis, what brings you to the Qin clan for? Qin Chuan was extremely polite. The status of a weaponsmith was extraordinary. I'm here to look for young Master Wentian. Francis bitterly smiled as he glanced at Qin Wentian. That day when Murin said he would bring him to the royal capital, he had admitted that he was the one who created the divine weapon in a moment of greed. Never would he have thought that Murin would ask him to reforge it again. This caused him to be extremely depressed, and he had no choice but to go to Lin Yu's place to ask her, only to find out that the apprentice was none other than Qin Wentian from the Qin clan. Luckily, he was a member of the Star River Association, and the people outside gave him some face. Hence, he casually made up a reason to enter. Strange expressions appeared on the faces of the crowd. Francis, why was he looking for Qin Wentian? What's the matter? Qin Wentian indifferently asked. I wish to collaborate with old brother Wentian to forge a divine weapon. I wonder if it's possible. Francis could feel the coldness in Qin Wentian's eyes, but he could only smile in response. Qin Wentian's heart pounded. This Francis actually wanted him to forge a divine weapon. Could it be that the divine weapon he had casually forged had already surpassed his level? If not, there was no need for Francis to look for him. Seems like the divine imprints in those memories are extraordinary. Qin Wentian silently speculated. This was the only possibility. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but coldly smile. My Qin clan is currently in danger, and I have no time to accompany Grandmaster in forging a divine weapon. If I were to damage Grandmaster's divine weapon, I wouldn't be able to afford it. Please leave. Francis bitterly smiled as he stared at Qin Wentian, as he spoke in a low voice, Young Master Wentian, if you have any requests, feel free to state them. First, tell me, why do you want me to forge a divine weapon? Qin Wentian stared at Francis. That day, the divine weapon you inscribed was a first-level divine weapon, and at most, you would be able to forge a high-grade first-level divine weapon. Francis should be able to do so as well. Even if Francis was inferior to Qin Wentian in terms of divine inscriptions, there was no need for Qin Wentian to beg him. Francis had a difficult expression on his face. If Grandmaster doesn't wish to speak, there's nothing more to discuss. Francis cast a glance at Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan understood, and waved his hands towards the crowd. Momentarily, many people departed, leaving only a few people behind. Grandmaster, you can speak now. Qin Wentian's words caused Francis's countenance to stiffen, as he sighed in his heart. He didn't seem to have a choice, and so he told Qin Wentian everything that had happened. After hearing the story, Qin Chuan and the rest were all astonished. Qin Wentian was actually able to inscribe divine inscriptions. Wentian, I can send you to the Star River Association. That Murin will definitely ensure your safety. Qin Chuan's eyes flickered with a sharp glint. Qin Wentian also had some ideas in his heart. This Murin was once the hall master of the Star River Association in Sky Harmony City, and now that his proficiency in weaponsmithing had grown even stronger, it was evident that he had quite a high status. If he was willing to help, Qin Wentian might be able to pull the Qin clan out of this predicament. Francis, who was standing at the side, had an expression of anxiety on his face. He was now in a dilemma. Grandmaster Francis. Qin Wentian stared at Francis, as he stated, it's impossible for me to forge a divine weapon together with you. However, the reason why you want to follow Murin is because you want to raise your proficiency in weaponsmithing. I'm proficient in many divine inscriptions, and I can give some to you. You can also explain it to Grandmaster Murin. Francis's countenance stiffened. It seemed that it was impossible for him to get Qin Wentian's help. However, if Qin Wentian was willing to give him the divine inscriptions, that wouldn't be too bad either. At most, Qin Wentian could just go back and admit his mistake before handing over the divine inscriptions. If that's the case, many thanks to young Master Wentian. Francis politely replied. Please wait a moment. Qin Wentian walked out of the great hall, causing strange expressions to appear on the faces of Qin Chuan and the rest. Big brother, have you taught Wentian how to inscribe divine inscriptions before? Qin he curiously asked. Divine inscriptions are incomparably complicated, even I myself am not proficient in it. How can I teach Wentian? Qin Chuan shook his head, as he whispered, strange, Yao do you know that Wentian has always been close to you? That bastard, there are many things I don't know. Qin Yao's lips twitched. However, she also hoped that Qin Wentian would be able to form a connection with the Star River Association. This way, the Star River Association would be able to protect him from this calamity. After a period of time, Qin Wentian returned with many sheets of metal, causing the expressions on the faces of Francis and the rest to grow even stranger. However, when Francis received the sheets of metal from Qin Wentian and scrutinized them, his heart involuntarily trembled. These were divine inscriptions, extremely exquisite divine inscriptions. Not only that, how did Qin Wentian manage to inscribe these divine inscriptions onto the metal sheets so perfectly? Foundry Astral Soul. Francis's heart trembled as he stared at Qin Wentian. Yes, my astral soul is a foundry astral soul, condensed from a constellation from the third heavenly layer. I will gift these sheets of metal to you. In addition, if Grandmaster Francis is able to bring me a batch of divine weapons, I am willing to exchange them with divine inscriptions. Qin Wentian's words caused Francis's heart to surge. Qin Wentian's divine inscriptions were extremely exquisite. As long as he could comprehend one of them, it would be extremely easy for him to forge a divine weapon that was at the peak of the first heavenly layer. Okay, I'll take my leave then. Francis nodded his head heavily. He decided to return and tell Qin Wentian the truth. He believed that with these divine inscriptions, Grandmaster Murin wouldn't blame him too much. Qin Wentian's countenance flickered as he watched Francis depart. He had intentionally revealed his talent in weaponsmithing because he wanted to borrow the support of Francis to let Murin know that he didn't know if Murin's capabilities would be able to save the Qin clan from this predicament. Father, I'll leave first too. Qin Wentian excused himself. He was prepared to comprehend the more profound second divine inscriptions. Chapter 23. Qin Wentian felt that time flowed by very quickly. In these 2 days, he had been madly cultivating, and at the same time, comprehending second-level divine inscriptions. After expending 2 yuan meteor stones, he finally stepped into the 7th level of the body refinement realm. The astral energy from his astral body flowed through his internal organs, and his aura grew stronger and stronger. Each and every breath he took seemed to contain a surge of essence, qi, and spirit, and a casual punch of his was capable of unleashing the strength of 50 bulls. Qin Wentian couldn't wait for more time to increase his cultivation and strength. However, to the people of the Qin residence, every day felt like a year. Outside, the attacks of the 3 night regiments grew more and more ferocious. At every moment, there would be people losing their lives. The pressure and the flames of hatred had already reached the peak. A voice rang out from within the Qin residence. Kill our way out, no matter the cost. Even if we die, we'll drag them down with us. Qin Chuan didn't agree. Instead, he gathered all the clan members together and paid their respects to the portrait of their ancestor Qin Wu in the ancestral hall. Today was the day of the annual sacrifice. The Qin clan's old grandfather, Qin Hao, also came out. After paying their respects to the ancestors, the members of the Qin clan departed from the ancestral hall. As they walked through the Qin clan, some of the clan members passed by, carrying a corpse. Someone couldn't help but shout out, "Grandfather, kill him. If this continues, we'll be trapped here until we die." No need, the one they want is me. I have already contacted a few old friends from the past. Once I am taken as a prisoner and brought to the imperial city, they will send their army from the border. Qin Hao's voice was calm. As long as I am in their hands, those people will feel at ease. Father, that won't do. The Qin clan cannot allow father to take such a risk. Qin Chuan shook his head. What the Qin clan's patriarch meant was that Qin Chuan wanted to walk into a trap and sacrifice himself. The empire that your grandfather fought for has already declined in my hands. I can't watch it be destroyed. Qin Hao laughed. After which, he walked to the side of Qin Wendian and the rest, patting Qin Wentian's head as he kindly stated, protect Wendian and the rest well. Nothing must happen to them. Qin Chuan's eyes were bloodshot as he nodded heavily. Grandpa Qin. Qin Wendian felt a burst of sorrow. Could it be that the Qin clan really couldn't survive this calamity? Grandfather, clan lord, the people from the Star River Association have arrived. At this moment, someone came to report, causing Qin Wendian to be startled. A glimmer of hope rose in his heart. Perhaps there would be a turning point. Invite him in. Qin Chuan spoke. An instant later, they saw a few silhouettes walking over. Not only that, the people behind them were all carrying large bags on their backs. Old Master Qin, my name is Murin. I'm here to look for young Master Wentian. The person in the lead was none other than Murin, whom Qin Wentian had met before in the Star River Association. Beside him was the arrogant young lady, as well as Francis. Qin Hao nodded slightly. After that, Qin Wentian walked over and said, I pay my respects to Grandmaster Murin. Qin Wentian, I've seen the divine inscriptions you inscribed. Are you willing to join my Star River Association and become my disciple? Murin stared at Qin Wentian. Master, please have a look. If I agree to join the Star River Association and take you as my master, would Grandmaster be able to guarantee the safety of the Qin clan? Qin Wentian asked Murin. Murin froze for a moment, before lightly shaking his head. The matters of the Qin clan are extremely complicated. Although I'm in the Star River Association, it's not convenient for me to interfere too much. But as long as you agree, I can bring you safely away from here. Wentian, agree to his request. Qin Wu and Qin Chuan both spoke. However, Qin Wentian was extremely disappointed. If he couldn't guarantee the safety of the Qin clan, what did it mean for him to leave alone? Abandon the Qin clan and escape alone? Thinking of this, Qin Wentian shook his head. Grandmaster Murin, I can't agree. Think about it again. As long as you agree, based on your talent, you can have anything you want in the future. You might even have the chance to avenge the Qin clan. Murin persuaded. Wentian. Qin Chuan and the rest stared at Qin Wentian. This child. However, Qin Wentian still shook his head. If I can guarantee the safety of the Qin clan, I will definitely agree. Murin stared at Qin Wentian, bitterly smiling as he shook his head. I don't have that much power, but I still don't wish to lose such a talented character. You can first become a guest elder of the Star River Association, and in the future, you can consider whether or not to join the Star River Association. In this case, although I won't be able to interfere in this matter, as long as you all join the Star River Association, I believe no one would dare to act against you. Qin Wentian's eyes brightened as he bowed to Murin. Many thanks, Grandmaster Murin. I am willing to become a guest elder of the Star River Association. Good, I hope you can come to the Star River Association safe and sound. I will wait for you. Murin patted Qin Wentian on his shoulders, before turning and departing. Francis, who was behind him, waved his hands, and the few people behind him opened up the bags, revealing numerous divine weapons on the ground. These are all my belongings. 8 pieces of top-grade, first-level divine weapons, and 37 pieces of mid-grade divine weapons. Francis had brought all the divine weapons he had forged for the past 2 days here. Thanks a lot. Qin Wentian passed a piece of metal sheet with second-level divine imprints inscribed on it to Francis. After receiving it, Francis left in ecstasy. These divine weapons can once again increase the strength of our Qin clan. Wentian, you can choose a few first, the rest will be distributed to Qin Chuan. Qin Hao spoke. Qin Wentian nodded his head. He only chose a single divine weapon, a long spear. The spear was like a dragon, tyrannical, suitable for him. Hao's figure flickered, rushing out of the Qin estate. Father! Qin Chuan and the rest followed after him. At this moment, the Qin clan was already in a state of chaos. Those who could only fight were all rushing out of the Qin residence, while the guards were still guarding their respective positions. Very quickly, at the entrance of the Qin residence, Qin Hao walked out. Momentarily, Wu Xiao Luo waved his hands, and everyone halted their steps. However, within the Qin residence, flames had already soared up to the skies. At the same time, there were experts who directly broke through the walls of the Qin residence, directly attacking the guards. Outside the Qin residence, many people witnessed this scene. It was as though they wanted to witness the destruction of the Qin clan. Wu Xiao Luo, I will leave with you. Spare the people of the Qin clan. Qin Hao slowly walked towards Wu Xiao Luo and the rest. Since Old Master is so straightforward, I will naturally spare the people of the Qin clan. Wu Xiao Luo laughed, but the prerequisite is that I must guarantee that Old Master will successfully leave with me. As the sound of his voice faded, two knights wielding long spears appeared beside Qin Hao. Qin Chuan and the rest clenched their fists tightly. Their bodies were already drenched in sweat, they were extremely nervous. Abruptly, the long spears in the hands of the two knights pierced out at the same time. Piercing sounds rang out as the long spears pierced through Qin Hao's thighs. The tip of the spear directly penetrated through, causing blood to flow everywhere. Two gigantic holes appeared on Qin Hao's thighs. Father! Old Master! Qin Chuan and the rest roared in rage as they rushed forward, only to hear an explosive shout coming from Qin Hao's mouth, halt! Only to see Qin Hao lying on the ground, unable to stand up. Qin Chuan and the rest halted, their countenances were ashen, filled with the flames of hatred. Luo Wu Xiao Luo's warhorse arrived beside Qin Hao, staring down at him. That pitch-black countenance of his was filled with ruthlessness. Old Master is truly a man of character. However, I haven't finished my words yet. The prerequisite for me to spare the Qin clan is that they don't resist. Not only that, I will still bring the core members of the Qin clan with me. As the sound of his voice faded, Wu Xiao Luo coldly commanded, bring Old Master Qin away. Many of the knights pointed their spears at Qin Hao, as they slowly advanced forward, as though they were still afraid of Qin Hao. However, Qin Hao was already powerless to resist, and was escorted away by them. With his back facing the Qin clan, Qin Hao roared, Qin Chuan, remember my words. Big brother, kill them all. Qin Ye's gaze was filled with wildness, blazing with flames. Qin Yi, listen to my orders. Bring Qin Yao, Qin Wentian and the rest back. Qin Chuan stared at his father's back, his gaze was ice-cold, yet he was terrifyingly calm. Qin Yi still wanted to say something, but when he saw Qin Chuan turning his head and glancing at him, his heart suddenly trembled. Big brother, I will definitely bring them away. Let's go. As he spoke, he pushed Qin Wentian and the rest back to the Qin clan. Qin Wentian turned his head and stared at Qin Hao's back, staring at the ice-cold gaze of Wu Xiao Luo. As for the others, follow me and kill. Qin Chuan commanded. In an instant, many of them released their astral souls, as they advanced forward. The sounds of metal clashing shook the ground, filled with a sense of tragedy. The warhorses galloped, and the 3 squadrons of knights sped towards the Qin clan. In an instant, a bloody battle erupted. Retreat from the west gate. Big brother has already arranged for a squadron of guards to be stationed there. Qin He led the troops as they madly fled. In the midst of the chaos, Qin Wentian and Qin Yao rushed back to their own residence. Second uncle, I will go see my mother. You guys go to the west gate first. Qin Yao's eyes were filled with tears. She had personally witnessed her father's bloody battle, yet she had to flee. Very quickly, the madly sprinting Qin Wentian and Qin Yao returned to their residence. Qin Yao went to see her mother, while Qin Wendian went to look for Uncle Black. Uncle Black was calmly sitting in the training grounds, as he passed a star-shaped object to Qin Wendian. Wendian, when your life is in danger, use your astral energy to enter this object and activate it. Uncle Black, come with me. Qin Wendian wanted to carry Uncle Black on his back and leave, but Uncle Black passed the star-shaped object to him as he stated, "Don't worry, even if the Qin clan is really breached, the royal clan wouldn't be able to afford to lose so much face. They only want the core members of the Qin clan, they wouldn't care about an idle person like me." No way. Qin Wendian knew that Uncle Black was afraid of dragging him down, as he angrily shouted. "Trust my judgment. After so many years, have you ever seen Uncle Black fail? The flames of the Qin clan won't be able to reach this place." Only to see Uncle Black laughing as he continued, "Remember, you can only activate it when your life is at stake. Leave quickly, don't implicate the people of the Qin clan." Qin Wendian retreated a few steps and knelt in front of Uncle Black. He kowtowed thrice before turning and departing. Uncle Black had raised him for so many years, and had always been a man of his word. Qin Wendian had no way of persuading Uncle Black. Of course, Qin Wendian had another thought. Just like what Uncle Black had said, even if the Qin clan was breached, the people outside represented the face of the royal clan, and they wouldn't go so far as to slaughter the members of the Qin clan. Uncle Black wasn't an important member of the Qin clan, but he was someone that they specifically wanted. Chapter 24. The Qin clan had 4 gates: north, south, east, and west. After Qin Wu was captured, the Qin clan was engulfed in flames. There were members of the Qin clan constantly escaping from the 4 gates. Not only that, other than the east gate, the south gate and north gate also had a group of soldiers rushing out to protect the members of the Qin clan. However, the core members of the Qin clan were currently gathered at the west gate. "Hurry up, Qin," he urged when he saw Qin Wendian, Qin Yao, and the rest rushing over. Qin Wendian and the rest stomped on the ground as they soared through the air, landing on a warhorse. "Let's go." Qin he led the cavalry and rushed out. At the very front was a group of guards, each of them had a horned gigantic bow strapped to their backs, a spear in their right hand, and a sword hung on the saddle on the left. The rumbling sounds of the horses galloping shook the air. Qin Wendian turned his head back and looked at the place he had lived in for over 10 years. His face was filled with determination, and a tear could be seen on it. This would be the last time he would cry. Today was the day of the yearly sacrifice. After today, he would truly be 16 years old. From then onwards, he would become an iron-blooded martial artist. There would only be blood, no tears. The cold wind brushed past their faces, bringing with it a sense of desolation. Qin Wendian and the rest were madly sprinting towards the west. However, in the midst of the bustling streets ahead, several silhouettes suddenly appeared from both sides of the street. Upon seeing the people in the lead, the members of the Qin clan all had expressions of rage on their faces. The old man from the Yi clan, Yi Mo, Yi Lang, as well as the clan leader of the Bai clan, Bai Qingsong. Evidently, the Bai clan had joined in the encirclement of the Qin clan. The guards didn't have the slightest intention to stop. The cavalrymen clamped onto their long spears, instantly retrieving the horned bow on their backs. 3 arrows were knocked on the bowstrings at the same time, and without exception, all of them shot 3 arrows at the same time. This was especially so for the few at the very front. Their arrows shone with resplendent astral light, bringing with it a terrifying whistling sound that caused the air to tremble. From this, one could see how terrifying the might of the arrows were. Puff, puff, puff. One arrow after another accurately pierced through the throats of several people, passing through their throats like lightning and continuing to move forward. "Kill!" Qin he coldly snorted. He knew the combat prowess of this group of guards. They were all elites, and there was even a Yuanfu realm cultivator among them that could contend against Yi Mo. Qin Wendian also urged his horse forward. He took the spear from his back and held it in his hand. The power of the stars flowed through his arm and into the spear. Suddenly, the spear was like his own arm. Fresh blood blossomed in front of them, appearing even more bewitching under the illumination of the sunlight. Qin He and Qin Yi both released their astral souls, instantly engaging in combat with Yi Lang's bodyguards, while a group of knights rushed towards Qin Wendian and the rest. A long spear suddenly pierced towards Qin Wendian's throat. It was fast, accurate, and the whistling wind turned into a sharp killing intent, blowing on Qin Wendian's body. At this moment, he had no fear, only calmness. His eyes were as bright as the stars, and the long spear in his hand pierced out at the same time, colliding with the tip of the opponent's long spear. Pang! The terrifying force of the collision directly jolted the opponent's arm, causing the long spear to fly out of his hand. Yet Qin Wendian's long spear was like a hot knife cutting through butter. His opponent's spear didn't even have enough time to fall out of his grasp, and directly pierced into his opponent's throat. The warhorse carried Qin Wendian's body as it continued forward. He released his grip, and when he once again grabbed hold of the long spear had pierced through his opponent's throat. In front of Qin Wendian, Yi Lang's sharp claws directly grabbed onto the head of a guard. Exerting some force, the guard fell from the back of his horse. His head was split open, and there was no longer any signs of life. Yi Lang's baleful eyes were filled with a wild aura, as he stared at Qin Wendian with contempt. The corners of his mouth curled up, as though he was provoking Qin Wendian. Next year, today will be the death anniversary of your Qin clan. And because of the crime of betrayal, Qin Wu and Qin Chuan will be beheaded in front of millions of people in the royal capital. Yi Lang coldly stated. After which, he pointed his finger at Qin Yao, who was still engaged in battle. Leave that woman alive, I want to enjoy her slowly. Qin Yao, who was humiliated, was distracted for a moment, and was almost hit by her opponent. Qin Wendian coldly glanced at Yi Lang, before turning his horse around and galloping away. Fleeing. The contempt on Yi Lang's face grew even more pronounced. Today, they had prepared an inescapable net for the Qin clan. Since this group of people had chosen this path, how could they let them leave alive? The warhorse that Yi Lang was sitting on also galloped forward, chasing after Qin Wendian. Only to hear Yi Lang say, "Don't let anyone interfere with my plans. His life is mine." In the inns and restaurants on both sides of the street, countless people were watching the battle, and their hearts were filled with shock. That person just now was Qin Wendian of the Qin clan. I heard that he was trash in the past, but who would have thought that on the day of the examination, he would amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. He actually has such terrifying talent, and his combat prowess is already so strong. So what? The person chasing him is Yi Lang, the genius of the Yi clan, and the disciple of Commander Azura. This time, Qin Wendian will definitely die. Many people sighed. In just a short moment, Qin Wendian and Yi Lang had already reached the other end of the street. The terrain there was wide and open, and it was extremely suitable for combat. As long as one stood on a high vantage point, they would be able to see that side of the street. At this moment, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Qin Wendian stopped his warhorse and turned around, facing Yi Lang who was chasing after him. Buzz! The long spear in Qin Wendian's hands shot out, bringing with it a strong gust of wind, directly aiming for the silhouette that was madly dashing towards him. However, it wasn't aimed at Yi Lang, but rather at the warhorse that Yi Lang was sitting on. With the speed and inertia of the warhorse, it was impossible for Qin Wendian to dodge. Poochie sounds rang out as the long spear directly pierced through the warhorse's skull. The warhorse let out a mournful wail, while Yi Lang's body soared up into the air, akin to a great rock spreading its wings, as he lunged towards Qin Wendian. Although he was only at the body refinement realm, and it was impossible for him to soar through the air, he was still able to rely on his immense strength. Not only that, Yi Lang's astral soul was that of a wolf. The leaping ability of a wolf was extremely powerful. At this moment, Yi Lang was akin to a demonic wolf, his sharp claws directly clawed towards Qin Wendian, as a dark glow emanated from his eyes. It wasn't suitable for Qin Wendian to exert his strength on a warhorse, and he could only step on the saddle, leaping backwards. Yi Lang's sharp claws directly clawed into the warhorse's skull, and the terrifying strength of his attack instantly caused the warhorse to fall to the ground. The two of them, having lost their mounts, faced each other head-on. Yi Lang licked the traces of blood at the corner of his mouth, as he stared at Qin Wendian, as though he was looking at a dead man. An ordinary cultivator at the 9th level of the body refinement realm would have a strength equivalent to 81 bulls, while Yi Lang is a stellar martial cultivator at the peak of the body refinement realm. His astral souls and techniques would be amplified, allowing Yi Lang to easily unleash a strength equivalent to over 100 bulls. Qin Wendian was incomparably calm. This time around, he had lured Yi Lang here, so he couldn't give his opponent even the slightest chance to retaliate. 9 silver needles appeared in Qin Wendian's hands. Without any hesitation, he accurately pierced the needles into 9 different acupoints on his body. In an instant, he could feel his potential being stimulated unceasingly, and the feeling of his entire body brimming with power made him want to let out a long howl. With regards to the acupuncture techniques taught to him by Uncle Black, Qin Wendian had long since understood them like the back of his hand. This acupuncture technique that could stimulate one's latent potential had never been used before, because it had a side effect. But this time around, he definitely had to kill the person in front of him. What a pity, you won't be able to witness the destruction of the Qin clan, as well as the scene of your elder sister Qin Ya becoming my plaything. Yi Lang laughed malevolently as he advanced, releasing his demonic wolf astral soul. He had no intentions of holding back, and would use the most brutal and tyrannical strength to kill his opponent, not giving Qin Wendian any chance to retaliate. The last time they fought, Qin Wendian's all-out attack was extremely powerful, but even so, he wouldn't give his opponent any chance to retaliate. This was self-confidence, confidence in his own strength. Qin Wendian stared at Yi Lang, who was advancing step by step, as he similarly released his Heavenly Hammer astral soul. The faint golden radiance of the Heavenly Hammer astral soul was extremely dazzling, causing the spectators in the distance to involuntarily exclaim in shock. This was a battle between genius stellar martial cultivators. Bzzz. Yi Lang's silhouette left behind a series of afterimages. The spectators saw a terrifying black-colored demonic wolf pouncing towards Qin Wendian, so fast that it was suffocating. At this moment, Qin Wendian was so quiet that it was terrifying. With his acute senses, he could feel Yi Lang rapidly approaching him. That terrifying ice-cold qi gushed over, as though it wanted to tear him into pieces. Qin Wendian finally moved, and his astral soul wavered. His arms, akin to a heavenly hammer, blasted out, transforming into the silhouette of a terrifying dragon. The tyrannical combination of the Heavenly Hammer astral soul and the dragon's subduing fist exuded a terrifying pressure. Heavenly Wolf Claw. Yi Lang blasted out a terrifying attack. The sharpness of his claws could even shatter boulders and shatter small hills. How could a body of flesh and blood withstand such an attack? 9 Heavenly Dragon Roar. This was the second time the two of them collided, and it could be said that this was their strongest attack. With a rumbling sound, Qin Wendian felt as though his fists were being torn apart, while Yi Lang felt an incomparably tyrannical force transmitted from his palms to his arms, wanting to shatter his arms, and even penetrate into his body. Boom! A terrifying force directly jolted Yi Lang's body, causing him to be flung through the air before slamming heavily onto the ground, coughing out a mouthful of fresh blood. After his breakthrough, Qin Wendian's strength increased explosively by another level. The 7th level of the body refinement realm was equivalent to the strength of 49 bulls. His astral body refinement realm was at the 5th heavenly layer, in addition to the augmentation of his astral souls, as well as the technique to stimulate his latent potential. The strength of this strike was extremely terrifying. This strike also exhausted half of the strength within Qin Wendian's body. He didn't use his full strength like the previous time, because if he did, he would lose his combat prowess. But even so, this strike caused Yi Lang to be gravely injured. After all, Yi Lang was the same as the majority of wuxios. Before he condensed his astral souls, he had already started to cultivate the yuan qi of heaven and earth to refine his body. His physique was incomparable to Qin Wendian's, and the amplification of his astral souls was naturally much weaker. Of course, Qin Wendian wasn't in a good state either. He retreated several steps before he could stabilize himself, but he didn't pause for even a moment. Like a wild beast, he trampled on the ground, pouncing towards Yi Lang. Yi Lang's countenance stiffened, as his countenance turned even colder. In the blink of an eye, he leapt up. Qin Wendian's violent fist was akin to a gigantic mountain pressing down on him, giving him no time to evade. He could only forcefully clash head-on with Qin Wendian. Pang! Yi Lang, who had hastily gathered his strength, was once again flung through the air. After suffering 2 consecutive heavy injuries, his blood and qi were unable to calm down, and he unceasingly spat out mouthfuls of blood. His countenance was deathly pale, but when he raised his head, he saw a pair of eyes filled with killing intent staring straight at him. For the first time, Yi Lang felt the fear of death. His entire body was filled with a chill, extremely cold, extremely cold. Chapter 25. Yi Lang didn't expect that Qin Wendian's strength would suddenly increase to such a terrifying level. If not, he wouldn't have used such a head-on method to fight against Qin Wendian. However, with a single misstep, it was already too late for regrets. Qin Wendian once again sprinted towards him. Bzzz, Yi Lang released his astral soul in a frenzy, as his entire person transformed into a demonic wolf. He used both his hands to crawl on the ground, like a wild beast, using all his remaining strength to escape. Even though he was heavily injured, the speed he displayed at this moment was still enough to cause people to feel fear in their hearts. Young master. From afar, the experts of the Yi clan, upon witnessing this scene, all turned pale. Especially the guards of Yi Lang, who were madly rushing towards them. Stop them! Qin Yi roared in rage, as his body ferociously pounced forward like a cheetah, directly knocking one of the guards off his warhorse. At the same time, the arrows of a few guards pierced through the air, nailing one of the guards to the ground. The ground trembled as Qin Wendian dashed towards Yi Lang in a frenzy. That slightly skinny silhouette of his was like a gust of wind, so fast that it caused people's hearts to tremble. How fast? The hearts of the people of the Qin clan trembled. Only now did they remember that this silent young man, who had once been forgotten by others, had never stopped running in the morning, regardless of rain or shine. As Qin Wendian sprinted, he pulled out the long spear from Yi Lang's warhorse. His sharp eyes stared at the back of Yi Lang's warhorse, as he abruptly let out an enraged roar. It was as though he had released all his anger into this spear strike. The long spear pierced through the air, piercing towards Yi Lang. It was even sharper and more ferocious than an arrow. Be careful! Yi Mo, who was in front, roared in rage. Yi Lang also felt the danger, as he abruptly leaped forward, dashing towards the distance. Puchi! Accompanied by a crisp sound, the long spear that was originally aimed at Yi Lang's head pierced through his leg. It pierced through the air, nailing Yi Lang's leg to the ground, causing Yi Lang to let out a shrill bestial howl. A gust of cold wind blew past. In this short moment, Qin Wendian had already come to Yi Lang's side. He lifted his foot and directly stepped on Yi Lang's back. The huge force directly shook Yi Lang and made him spit out blood. At this moment, the space fell silent. The people who were fighting all stopped and stared at him. They only saw an ice-cold flame flickering in the youth's eyes as he pulled out the spear that was embedded in Yi Lang's thigh. After which, he flipped Yi Lang over. In Yi Lang's eyes, there was a sense of fear towards death. He had never thought that he would die here. The people of the Yi clan seemed to have stopped breathing. If Yi Lang died, his guards would be buried with him. Qin Wendian, if you dare to pierce the spear down, what awaits you will be hell on earth. Emo looked at Qin Wendian and said in an ice-cold voice. Raising his head, Qin Wendian glanced at Emo. The corner of his mouth curved into a cold smile, and his eyes were filled with disdain and mockery. Lowering his head again, Qin Wendian stared at Yi Lang on the ground. He said coldly, I said before, I will definitely kill you. If you dare to touch me, you will die miserably. Yi Lang's eyes were still filled with animalistic intent. He stared fixedly at Qin Wendian and threatened. Qin Wendian, if Yi Lang dies, your Qin clan will not be able to bear the wrath of the Yi clan. Emo simultaneously exerted pressure. Even at this moment, they were still so arrogant. Remember, Yi Lang, you will not be the first. As soon as Qin Wendian's voice faded, the spear in his hand suddenly whistled downwards. A light, chi sound rang out, and time seemed to have frozen. The spear pierced through Yi Lang's head and nailed him to the ground. Blood splashed out, but Yi Lang's eyes didn't close. It was as if he didn't dare to imagine that he would die. The crowd in the distance had a dull look in their eyes, and their chests were heaving up and down. Only now did they understand that Qin Wendian didn't run away in the beginning, but to attract his prey, Yi Lang. He didn't want Yi Lang to even have a chance to escape. Good kill. Qin Yi roared. Qin Wendian's spear strike was very satisfying. Come and kill me. If I don't die today, I will be your Yi clan's nightmare. Qin Wendian pointed his spear at Emo as he coldly spoke. After which, he turned and madly sprinted towards an alleyway. Emo stepped out, soaring into the air. However, the Yuanfu realm guard blocked his path. Qin Wendian wanted to lure the Yi clan to chase after him, so that the members of the Qin clan would have a chance to escape. However, Emo would never allow a Yuanfu realm cultivator who could fly to chase after Qin Wendian. Kill Qin Wendian. Emo coldly commanded. Momentarily, the members of the Yi clan madly sprinted in the direction of Qin Wendian. Yi Lang had been killed, and if they allowed the murderer to escape, they wouldn't be able to endure the wrath of the Yi clan. The shock in Bai Qingsong's heart didn't subside even after a long time. The youth who had once smiled at him, had now revealed the iron-blooded aura of the Qin clan. His gaze caused Bai Qingsong to feel a faint sense of fear. In the depths of his heart, there was still a hint of regret. However, that regret was instantly drowned out by reason. The most important thing now was to destroy the Qin clan, and kill Qin Wendian. They couldn't allow the Qin clan to rise from the ashes. Many from the Yi and Bai clan chased after Qin Wendian, causing the pressure on the members of the Qin clan to lessen. Qin he commanded, everyone, retreat to the Star River Association. But Wendian. Qin Yao had a worried expression on her face. Don't let Wendian down. I'll go find him. Qin Yi, I'll leave this place to you. Qin he commanded, as he dashed in the direction of Qin Wendian. Qin Ye's eyes were bloodshot as he roared, retreat. When the members of the Yi clan rushed into the street where Qin Wendian had disappeared, Qin Wendian's silhouette was nowhere to be seen. Based on Qin Wendian's familiarity with Sky Harmony City, he naturally wouldn't allow them to chase after him. When you meet a fork, immediately split into two groups and chase after him. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. The pursuers rushed into the middle of the street, and every time they saw a fork, they would immediately split into two groups. If not, if they were all in a group, it would be extremely difficult to find Qin Wendian. This street was one of the most flourishing streets in Sky Harmony City. There were many forks in the road, and it wasn't suitable for horses to ride. As for the current Qin Wendian, he was hiding in a deserted alley at the end of the street. A Yuan meteor stone appeared in his hands, and he unceasingly absorbed the energy within. He didn't even care about using his astral souls to temper it, as he urgently needed to replenish his energy. Over here. A voice drifted into Qin Wendian's ears, causing his entire body to tense up. After which, the sound of footsteps could be heard, causing Qin Wendian's entire body to tense up. In the next instant, two silhouettes dashed past him, but in the blink of an eye, the two silhouettes halted at the same time, as though they had sensed his presence. Bzzz. Qin Wendian's body tensed up, and in that instant, he was like an arrow shot from a bow, and also like a ferocious cheetah. Abruptly, he pierced out with his spear. The spear was like a dragon, emitting a terrifying dragon's roar. The dragon's subduing fist was infused into the long spear, and the might it exuded was incomparably tyrannical. Pucci. One of the silhouettes turned around, only to see the unavoidable long spear piercing through his throat, as swift and violent as lightning. The other silhouette felt his heart tremble. After which, he, who was an experienced fighter, instantly retreated a step, increasing the distance between him and Qin Wendian. Collapsing tiger fist. That person roared in rage. Momentarily, a terrifying gust of wind blasted towards Qin Wendian, as though a ferocious tiger was tearing its prey apart. Each and every one of his fists was filled with an aura of savagery. The power of an innate technique, a cultivator at the arterial circulation realm. At this moment, Qin Wendian was unprecedentedly calm. In his eyes, there was only his opponent. Although this person wasn't a stellar martial cultivator, a cultivator at the arterial circulation realm could unleash the power of an innate technique. There was no need for him to get close to Qin Wendian in order to unleash a long-range attack. The power of an innate technique was inexhaustible, and when facing a cultivator at the body refinement realm, he would have an absolute advantage. Roar! The long spear was like a dragon, sweeping out, penetrating through the fist, as though a ferocious tiger was being torn apart. Qin Wendian's strength, in addition to the amplification from the long spear, had already reached the level of arterial circulation realm cultivator. After all, this person wasn't a stellar martial cultivator, and was only at the first level of arterial circulation realm. In that short instant, Qin Wendian had already made his decision. He would kill his opponent, and he would end the battle as quickly as possible. What a tyrannical strength! That person, upon seeing that Qin Wendian had broken through his innate technique with a single strike of his spear, couldn't help but feel shocked in his heart. No wonder Yi Lang was able to kill Yi Lang. Retreating once again, he didn't want to give Qin Wendian any opportunity to engage in close combat. Both his fists blasted out in a frenzy, as though he wanted to crush Qin Wendian. Resplendent astral energy blossomed, as a heavenly hammer appeared in Qin Wendian's left hand. Arcing through the air in a beautiful arc, he abruptly smashed out with a terrifying tyrannical intent. Boom! The wind from his fists surged, as the tyrannical strength of the heavenly hammer deflected the innate technique. As for the remaining force, Qin Wendian forcefully endured it with his body. His eyes flashed with a terrifying sharpness as he took a few steps forward, the long spear in his hands piercing forwards. Die! Abruptly, Qin Wendian released his grip, and the long spear shot out like an enraged dragon. His opponent frantically tried to defend, but Qin Wendian's attack contained a tremendous amount of force. The long spear was like a hot knife cutting through butter, directly piercing through the center of his opponent's brows. An expert at the arterial circulation realm had fallen. Who? Qin Wendian drew in a deep breath, as he pulled out his long spear. In an instant, his silhouette disappeared into the alleyway, as he dashed towards the other end. The commotion here would soon attract the attention of others. At this moment, Qin Wendian was feeling extremely fatigued. After all, he was only at the 7th level of the body refinement realm. Consecutively killing Yi Lang and the two Wu Xiu, as well as receiving a strike from Qin Wendian earlier, had exhausted too much of his energy. When the effects of the acupuncture technique wore off, he would be even weaker. He had to reach a safe location before that happened. Chapter 26. Qin Wendian tossed the divine spear aside without any hesitation. The divine spear in his hands was simply too eye-catching. His pursuers only needed to ask the passers-by and they would be able to track him down easily. He wouldn't feel lucky just because he killed an arterial circulation realm cultivator. His opponent was merely a cultivator at the arterial circulation realm who cultivated the yuan qi of heaven and earth. His strength wasn't strong enough, and if he met someone stronger, he wouldn't be able to contend against them. Even with the amplification of the divine spear, he would still die in battle. At this moment, he knew what he should do. After tossing away the divine spear, he passed by a shop and purchased a long robe to cover his original clothes. After which, he circled around the streets. Occasionally, he would encounter pursuers looking in all directions, but as long as he silently turned and walked into an alley, it would be extremely difficult to be discovered. However, what caused Qin Wentian to feel a chill run down his spine was that the entire area was sealed off. More and more members of the Yi and Bai clans were gathered here, guarding the various openings. There were a few times when he wanted to exit, but he silently retreated. Wanting to exit this area was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Find someone to act as a guide and guard the various openings. At the same time, get others to infiltrate this area to search. If this continues, I will be found sooner or later. At this moment, Qin Wentian leaned against a wall, as though nothing had happened. He was fiddling with the star-shaped object that Uncle Black had given him. He didn't know what was inside, but Uncle Black obviously wouldn't give something useless to him. However, at this moment, light footsteps could be heard approaching. Qin Wentian's heart tightened, and as his peripheral vision swept over, he saw a person walking towards him. Because Qin Wentian had his head lowered, he could only suspect that it was someone else. He called out to Qin Wentian, "Raise your head." Qin Wentian didn't raise his head. As the other party's footsteps got closer, Qin Wentian's entire body tensed up as he gathered the energy in his body. Abruptly, Qin Wentian lifted his head, and just as he was about to act, he heard a piercing sound. A long spear directly pierced through the neck of that person. After which, a silhouette walked out from a nearby courtyard. Second uncle. Qin Wentian's gaze suddenly froze. This person was actually Qin He. He didn't know that Qin He had also chased after him after seeing him alive. After saying these two words, Qin He quickly walked out of the alley. Like Qin Wentian, he was draped in a long robe. He also wore a bamboo hat on his head and lowered his head. This way, as long as no one could see his face, he would look no different from Qin Wentian. The long robe draped over his shoulders made it easy for people to ignore the difference in stature between him and Qin Wentian. Second uncle. When Qin Wentian saw the back of the figure, he suddenly realized what the other party was going to do. He exclaimed in a low voice. However, he only heard the sound of a collision coming from outside. Qin He had deliberately knocked over something to attract the attention of others. Found it. Here. A cry of surprise came from outside, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. Alive. Qin He's voice resounded in his mind. There were only two words, and nothing else. At this moment, Qin Wentian recalled many things. Once, Qin He had always treated him coldly. Once, Qin He had even advocated for him to be expelled from the Qin clan. But at the moment of life and death, Qin He had no hesitation and stepped out on his behalf, leaving him with only the back view of an iron-blooded warrior. He once again thought of Bai Qingsong's hypocritical face. Some people, they appear dignified, cultured and refined, but they are downright despicable people. Some people, he appears cold and indifferent, but they can't hide their iron-blooded heroism. The men of the Qin clan had blood but no tears. I must live. Qin Wentian clenched his fists. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to live. Turning around, he headed in the opposite direction of Qin He. Qin He had placed himself in a dangerous situation, and it was very likely that he would not be able to return. This was the best opportunity for him to escape. Even if it wasn't for himself, for Qin he had to escape. Qin Wentian's footsteps became faster and faster. Since Qin He had done this, he would definitely cause a huge commotion and attract the pursuers to surround and kill him. However, once his identity was exposed, the pursuers would react. He had to take advantage of this opportunity to leave this area. The rage in his heart and the conviction to escape transformed into strength. Qin Wentian's speed was very fast, and he shuttled through the alleys of the streets. Not long after, he arrived at an opening. As expected, there was no one guarding it. Without any hesitation, Qin Wentian rushed out, and then sped along a large street. Beside him was a tall wall, and this tall wall separated the street inside from the main street outside. At this moment, in front of Qin Wentian, on top of the tall wall, a vigorous figure suddenly leaped up. It was a young woman, around the age of 18. Her clothes were tightly fitted to her body, and perfectly outlined her curves. Her shoulder-length black hair danced in the wind, and when her eyes saw Qin Wentian, her eyes couldn't help but light up. Immediately after, she put her hand in front of her mouth and whistled, and a charming smile appeared on her face. Qin Wentian didn't recognize this beautiful and charming woman, but from the look in her eyes, it was obvious that she recognized him. However, the woman didn't display any hostility, and Qin Wentian continued running. However, he soon discovered that the woman's body was parallel to his. It was just that she was on top of the tall wall, while he was on the main street below the wall. "Haha, have you found him?" A clear voice rang out. After which, Qin Wentian saw another silhouette leaping up the tall wall, glancing in his direction. Naturally, there won't be any problems if this young miss personally takes action. That woman laughed. The two of them didn't interact with Qin Wentian, and continued following him. This caused Qin Wentian to curse silently in his heart. On the other side of the tall wall was a street, and their movements would definitely attract the attention of others. If this continued, they would be exposed sooner or later. Increasing his speed, Qin Wentian took a detour around the main street, and turned onto another wide road, preparing to head towards the Star River Association. Maybe there would be a place for him to hide. The sound of hooves thundered out, and very quickly, Qin Wentian saw a group of riders rushing over, and the person in the lead was none other than Yemo. On his left and right, several silhouettes appeared, causing Qin Wentian's countenance to turn pale. He had been exposed. This time around, it would be impossible for him to escape even if he had wings. "I want him alive," Yemo coldly stated, the killing intent in his eyes not concealed in the slightest. Two silhouettes dashed towards Qin Wentian, their terrifying speed causing Qin Wentian to feel fear in his heart. These two were definitely existences at the arterial circulation realm that he couldn't contend against. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian only felt a gust of raging wind blowing past him. Before he could even react, a silhouette dashed out from behind, taking huge strides towards the two people rushing towards Qin Wentian. The earth trembled violently, and with every step the silhouette took, a deep footprint would be left on the ground, causing people's hearts to tremble. Puchi! A light sound rang out, as the space around them suddenly froze. Qin Wentian saw the hands of that mysterious silhouette as sharp as blades, directly piercing into the hearts of the two people in front of him. With a slight bit of force, the expert from the Yi clan, who was rushing towards him, softly collapsed onto the ground. How powerful! Qin Wentian's countenance trembled. He discovered that the person who killed the expert from the Yi clan was actually the person walking on the tall wall. And indeed, at this moment, the woman on the tall wall appeared beside him. At the same time, from all directions, several silhouettes flickered as they appeared. All of them were youths, with the majority of them being below the age of 20. These youths all exuded a similar aura, as though they stood out from the crowd. "Junior brother, you look quite handsome." The woman had a charming smile on her face, as a faint fragrance drifted into Qin Wentian's nostrils. In addition to that figure that would cause one to spurt out blood, Qin Wentian's heart was in turmoil, as he silently cursed this woman. This woman was slightly older than him, and in terms of beauty, she could even be compared to the four great beauties of Sky Harmony City. Not only that, she was even more seductive, especially when it came to her voluptuous breasts that were outlined by her tight-fitting clothes, causing people to have an impulse to have a nosebleed. "Junior brother." Upon hearing this form of address, Qin Wendian involuntarily had an expression of contemplation on his face. He didn't seem to have entered the tutelage of anyone. However, as the silhouette of a silhouette entered his vision, Qin Wendian suddenly understood. It was none other than Mustang. In that case, the origins of these people were obvious. They were students of the Emperor's Star Academy. I believe that this shouldn't be the will of the Emperor's Star Academy, right? Yi Mo calmly stated. The Emperor's Star Academy should have already severed all relations with this matter. Mustang and the others shouldn't have appeared here. This is the will of Mustang, and has nothing to do with the Emperor's Star Academy. Mustang calmly stated. In truth, it was just as Yi Mo had expected. Due to the pressure from the Emperor's Star Academy, as well as the complicated chain of benefits, Mustang's request for the Emperor's Star Academy to intervene in this matter was rejected. Mustang didn't know what benefits were involved, but he liked this youth, Qin Wendian. This youth's temperament, willpower, and talent were all things that he liked. Hence, he wanted to protect Qin Wendian. Hence, he mobilized his own students, and sent them to Sky Harmony City, which resulted in the current situation. Since this is the case, I can rest assured. Yi Mo calmly stated. After which, he waved his hands, causing the soldiers from all four directions to surround Mustang and the others. Although the combat prowess of the students of the Emperor's Star Academy was tyrannical, in terms of numbers, the Emperor's Star Academy had the absolute advantage. Since Mustang and the others wanted to interfere, they might as well stay in Sky Harmony City. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.